The 6-hour season opener was as grueling as we expected. Thankfully for the drivers, race 2 is a mere 3 hours long. However, while Road America isn't without its pitfalls, it'll seem somewhat pedestrian compared to the difficulties at Sebring. The old adage is that 12 hours here is as taxing as 24 at Le Mans. Will that prove true today? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the Team Racing Series presented by Porsche Exchange. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth today is DJ Clark. Cameron Aubernon is on social media, along with Ryan Bauer producing, who is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Now, if you haven't experienced a race here at Sebring before, it is quite a track with an interesting history behind it. Why don't we head to our track guide to see what's involved with a lap around here? Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course. Well, DJ, no stranger to endurance racing. This is going to be fitting here today for our 3 classes. How do you think it's going to handle with these different types of Porsches?
Well, Joe, it's really going to be a sort of tale of 2 different circuits here, especially dealing with that lap traffic. The first and the third sector around here, it's going to be relatively easy to get by lap traffic. Plenty of big straightaways, good opportunities to make a pass going down at a hairpin or through Sunset into turn 1, the places that we often talk about. But it's that middle sector, really from the run from the Fangio chicane all the way down through Le Mans, that drivers are going to have to really be on their tiptoes to make sure they don't get caught out bad by some traffic. If you get caught by a GT4, or if you catch a GT4 rather in one of these GT3s or these Porsche Cup 992s coming up through Collier or Bishop Bend, areas like that are a little tight and twisty, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble. So I think here today, as compared to what we saw at Road America, it's going to be a lot more about traffic management. You've got to be really heads up when you make these moves.
Absolutely, especially with 3 different classes out there. But before we get to that racing, we want to mention that today's race is brought to you by the Porsche Exchange. The Porsche Exchange has been family owned and operated for over 40 years. Located in the North Shore of Chicago, the Porsche Exchange has grown to be the largest volume Porsche dealer in the entire Midwest. Along the way, they've won the Porsche Premier Dealership Award for years in a row and has been chosen to be one of the few Porsche exclusive manufactured dealerships in the entire country. Find out more at 4Porsche.com or follow them at Porsche Exchange on Instagram. Big thank you to them for helping make this series possible. But currently, we are in the midst of our qualifying. Now, this is an open qualifying, and this will set the grid, but the driver in the car that sets the quickest lap for their team does not have to start the race. So it is all about getting your fastest guy out there, seeing whether or not they can get a decent time on the board in these 30 minutes. And it is currently in the morning out here during this qualifying session, which is about when the race is going to start. So this should be pretty representative, DJ, of what the pace of the cars should be once they head to the grid.
Indeed, it should, Joe. But as we were talking about before the broadcast, it is going to speed up time a little bit during the race. They're going to simulate the full 12 hours of Sebring over the course of this 3-hour affair. So don't be surprised as the sun starts to go down, the track starts to cool off, if we see a car or two start to look a little bit better, a little bit more stuck in as it goes along. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. I think you could set up the car a couple of different ways, and we'll see all of that really coming to the fore.
Right now, Black Flag Meister in the 96 has the quickest time. Christopher Stiles set that, and only a single flying lap as well, but he's going to come back out, see what he can do from there. Imperial Motorsports Shake in the open class currently holds the pole there in the 992s, and then Dreadnought Racing has Jason Brodigan in the number 8s. They have the provisional pole currently down in the GT4s. 3 different types of Porsches out here. They're going to look somewhat similar, as Porsches have that distinctive silhouette on them, but definitely have their own qualities and characteristics. And as you can see, there's pretty much everybody. Yeah, there's all but one, it appears, that are currently out on the track and running. So everybody is doing their best to find that track position for the start.
Yeah, everybody really pushing their way around here the best they can as we ride on board with the Dreadnought Racing Machine right now. Just kind of getting off to the side there as they exit out of Le Mans. That's one of those areas that I talked about for that GT4 category, that they're going to have to be heads up to any approaching open class or GT3 cars up ahead of them. This is Keith Morgan for Flying Lion as he is going to be coming around Sunset. You can see just how wide open it is, taking what we would call pretty much the traditional line through that corner.
And as he crosses, that one's not going to be quicker, about 6/10 down on his fastest lap, but the tower is constantly changing with 19 of our 26 drivers, or 26 teams rather, having put a lap in. We're now on board with Rattray here for E2JR Motorsports. And both first laps were deleted for Roberts. It looks like he's had some trouble keeping it within the boundaries, or maybe had some spins somewhere along the way. So he'll want to try and get something representative down, because he is in that GT3 class here, and that is the fastest of the classes. So track position definitely key for these cars.
Yeah, indeed. You want to be towards the pointy end of this field. It's not a super long endurance race, so you can't completely wait for everything to come to you necessarily. You've got to push a little bit harder than you would necessarily at Road America. Continue to ride on board with Rattray here as he works his way through Jean Debienne and through that corner right there. Pretty good line. You can see how easy it is to pick up an off track, though. That's why his previous 2 laps were deleted.
Absolutely, and as he comes down the Ullman Straight, so far it's looked good from what we've been watching on this one. Number 1 car, can he take P1 away from the Black Flag Meister team in the 96 here? So far, it's looking pretty decent, and coming around Sunset Bend, as long as he doesn't touch the grass on the outside, he should be good, and that one's clean. So as he crosses the start-finish line, it is going to be a 58.4. That will actually put him on the front row, but it is still half a second between himself and that 96 team.
Yeah, that Black Flag Meister car. Whoa! As Rattray goes for a little bit of a spin there, Rattray rather. And so he's going to have to gather things back up in the remaining 20 minutes of this session. This is Nicky Chan, the man that E2JR Motorsports team was just able to bump down to third in the Wookiee Racing Machine. Chan trying to gain back a little bit. He's got about 3/10 to try to catch the E2JR machine, and about 7/8 to catch Black Flag Meister, which shows you just how quick that 96 was.
They seem to have something of a leg up over everybody else. Oh, and Matrix Green now pushes down E2 Junior Motorsports. So that was Matthew Siddall in that car that just went closer, but still about 4.5 away from Christopher Stiles' lap. And way off into the dirt here for Garrett Taylor, Three Stooges Racing, living up to their name a little bit there for a second. And he'll weave back to the racing line now, but this one obviously is going to be deleted. They're currently second in that GT4 class. Instead, we switch over to Brody, who sits in 9th in his class in the 84 machine.
Yeah, Travis here working his way through turn 2 and the Gurney Bend. This is really the first part of the lap where you're able to take a breath, kind of get everything back onto you, and then you've got to hop onto the binders here for the hotel hairpin. You can see just how much steering lock he's having to put into that. It's a very, very tight corner, and then that little chicane there, you've got to be careful. That can really narrow down the field once you get into race trim. You've got to be careful not to try to go too wide through there.
Yeah, we've certainly seen people be shoved off a few times as now he heads through the Cunningham and Collier sections down towards Tower, one of the trickier braking zones on this lap. And looks like he nailed that one right down to the curb, just glancing the apex. And he has set a time. Brody put a 2:15.3, but that is not on pace with the rest of his class. So he's right now scored behind all the other of the GT4s and the Cup cars. So he really needs to get this JRT racing machine onto the board a little bit better, and that was again taking it right out to the edge out of Le Mans, coming up to Sunset Bend. Just one more corner here, and will he keep it clean? Will he keep it together as he tries to push the car through here over the notorious bumps? And you can see the car jostling as it flies through there at over 100 miles an hour. And around out of the final turn, it will count, and it's a 57.6. That is actually pole.
Mega lap there for Travis Brody, absolutely putting that thing together and hooking it up. I was going to say his lines looked fantastic coming through those last few sectors, Joe, and that 84 really putting it together. But now it's up to Christopher Stiles and that Black Flagmeister machine to see if they can regain their glory.
And they're on an outlap right now, so we're not even going to see them set a time for another 3 minutes here. So we'll have to wait and see if they can respond. In the meantime, there are others that still could try and demote them. Let's not forget, as I see Rattray and Chan still out and rolling. And that's just the top class. Let's not forget the Imperial Motorsports Shake car, the 77, is not out currently. Pies has set the fastest time for them. Neither is Rodney Campbell in the Celtic racing car. Albano Competición in the open class, as Chad Dick trying to see if he can get on the front row of them. And then Banjo Paje has the quickest time for Star Racing down in the GT4s. They have overtaken Brodigan's lap for Dreadnought in the number 8, as that is who we see on screen right here in the silver and red machine. This is Cayman. Let's see, are they on a flyer? Does look like they are on a flyer here. So they've got a little bit of lap traffic behind them. In fact, that is our current overall pole sitter. But it looks like JRT is going to play patient and not interrupt the lap of the number 8.
Yeah, good sportsmanship there from them. And this Dreadnought racing machine, remember, I'm making an argument that it's a little bit harder to drive these GT4s around here. No real aerodynamic grip to speak of. It's all mechanical grip, and especially through some of the faster flying sections of this track, you've really got to be working the throttle and the brake pedal, especially down here. You can see just how late he was trail braking there into Sunset to get that car rotated, to get that rotation mid-corner.
Let's see if this one's going to be quick, and it is. A 2:10.4 is a big improvement, but not enough of one. Star Racing has a massive 1.1 seconds over them right now. And Banjo Paje looks to be coming back out to try and make that even more distant between the two of them, and pulling over to the side there. Looks like Dreadnought is going to come to a halt and take a tow. There's Banjo Paje just emerging from pit lane. Now, Christopher Stiles is out on his first flyer of this stint. He's got about 15 minutes left. That's plenty of time to try and improve. Oh, but there's a car spinning to the inside and is narrowly avoided. That was Komats for Team 1, having a very hairy moment through Tower Corner.
Yeah, very hairy indeed. I guarantee you the Black Flagmeister machine with Stiles behind the wheel, definitely watching that out of the corner of his eye. And I wouldn't be surprised, Joe, if there was a little bit of a lift there, a little bit of a hesitation. It was almost invisible there to the naked eye as he came through, just hoping that that car didn't spear off and ram into him.
Yeah, I know it would certainly distract me if I saw the sudden off to my side car appearing in the grass. Thankfully did not hit him, so didn't have to restart a flying lap. Let's see if that did hinder his 157.9 that he's trying to beat here as he crosses the line. It did not. 57.5, and that is going to be pulled right back to the 96 team. JRT is still out there and rolling, and I think they're back on a flyer this time now that they're out of traffic.
They're actually on an out lap here, Joe, so we'll have to wait another lap to see if JRT's able to blow things back up under him. I think they came in just swapping out for a fresh set of boots as we focus in on the number 24, that Star Racing Machine. Remember how dominant that car looked at Road America, and then some mid-race problems befalling them, and they fell down through the order. I think they are very eager to sort of reassert their dominance here today at Sebring.
They went offline a little bit, allowing the Matrix green car to go through. Now, briefly on the front row, they've been pushed down into third, as this does look like a pretty decent lap, but I'm not sure if it's going to be an improvement. It will not. 58.5 is about 0.2 off of their previous one. So they cycle around one more time to see what they can do from here. Down through Collier now, as we follow Dewey Kang in the Exchange Motorsports 003. This is fifth in that GT3 class, and not trying to disparage the other classes. Certainly some interesting fights for position in qualifying down there, but man, there's been a lot of flux here in this GT3 class.
Yeah, there really has, Joe. I mean, I look at that. The top five separated only by about a second. It has just been very, very tight here up at the top, and it's frankly hard to keep your eyes off of that battle. There is your leader, though, the Black Flagmeister Machine. Styles still behind the wheel. I think Dewey Kang will be getting the merest hint of a slipstream from the back of that 96, so that could help the Exchange Motorsports Machine maybe pick up a little bit of top-line speed coming down the long Ullman straight.
Somebody had hit a cone there as they entered into the pit lane. That's going to be a bit of a talking point throughout that pit entry, but not a quicker one for Black Flagmeister that time by. And the Exchange Motorsports was on an out lap. That or they had some sort of off, as that one did not count for them. And here we see Travis Brody now in JRT. And I see them on my timing screen at 0.6 down from their quickest laps. I'm not sure if this is looking like a good one here.
Yeah, there was a very, very slow first microsector. I'm not sure if he was held up in traffic a little bit. Maybe the 194 there holding him up a little bit as they work their way around. That's the Spanners Motorsports Machine in that open class. Here's Volker Krebs, though. Alcora Racing currently sixth in that GT4 category.
Yeah, Spanners Motorsport joining us for the first time. They were not able to attend the first round. Somebody off the course there for a brief moment. And another one as we follow Donald Binkley up through Bishop Bend. Also Black Flagmeister Neue. Make sure you're paying attention because we have two Black Flagmeister teams now. But the Neue version is also one that was not able to attend back at Road America. There we see Adam Chick currently in that car, but unfortunately, as opposed to their sister team, 733 is last in their class down in the open class here.
Yeah, very much looking like they're off the pace. There is nobody at all really able to touch Imperial Motorsports Shake, as even Celtic Racing, their closest competitors, whopping 1.1 seconds behind them. So a lot of work still here to do for the Black Flagmeister Neue machine, but still about 10 minutes left to go, so they've got some time to put some good laps on the board.
Now, the other thing that's neat about this is they have this open class, and these are the essentially cup cars, as they are often called in Porsche competition. They are the middle class of these three, but we saw last time out, Road America with all the long straights, they have quite a bit of straight line speed, which made things a little frustrating for the GT3 class there. And I'm curious how that's going to... how the interaction is going to be at this track, since there are a couple long straights, but not quite like what we saw in Wisconsin.
No, not at all. And I think what it means is that you're going to see this GT3 class start to be a little bit faster. We talked about that second sector before, about how that's really the tight and twisting portion of the track. I think through there in particular, you're going to see these GT3s start to pull away. More aerodynamic grip. Also, they've got a little bit of traction control and ABS, so they're able to handle the corners a little bit better as compared to those cup cars, and that will really come alive here in this second sector.
As we watch the 258 Wookiee Racing, certainly had a lot of adventures themselves in that last race, and we talked about that a lot. That was a major story point last time in the 6 hour. It's obviously a little bit shorter, but still an enduro, DJ, that getting to the end is going to be a feature. Keeping the car on track, keeping the laps in, and they do have a spare car, so if they get some damage, they have that sitting in their pocket. But it makes me think, especially with how bumpy and how punishing of a track this is, that lessening those mistakes just like that is going to be a deciding factor today, and that will also slow up Keith Morgan there in Flying Lion, who had to try and avoid getting tangled up there.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. I mean, we talked earlier about the Star Racing Machine, that number 24 that looked like it was the class of the field out in Road America, and an unforced error from them really caused them to plummet down through the field. And yes, this is a more short sprint style endurance race, let's call it, but very, very, very tricky to be able to get everything right. And you've got to be at the end of these 3 hours. That is what you have to focus on first before anything else.
Which also means pit stops and pit stop strategy too. So we'll need to watch the drivers and see how they decide to play that out. Now, obviously, we don't have full course cautions here unless we have a major incident and a track blockage at the start. Crossing fingers we don't see something of that nature. But 8 minutes left here in the qualifying, and then they're going to have to really buckle down and see what kind of pace they can unleash for the race proper. We're watching Keith Morgan still in Flying Line. That definitely was a slow lap, having to check up to avoid the incident we witnessed. And they're sitting last and ninth in that GT3 class currently. They've got about 7/10 to make up, so a pretty good chunk that they have got to run down just to make up a single position.
Yeah, it's a good amount for them, and I think for them at this point, what they've got to kind of be hoping for is to pick up a good amount of slipstream down the Ullman Straight, maybe out of Sunset and down into Turn 1. That can be enough to close it in, because it doesn't quite look like that Flying Lion machine has the ability to just do that on outright pace.
Struggling for some reason out here, but one lap pace does not make the difference in the main one, in that endurance race. I'm watching Matrix Green currently, who looks to be on a decent one themselves, trying to improve on a 58.3. They've gotten close. They had a 58.4 on the previous timed lap. This one, a 58.5, so just slower once again, but they are using every inch of it, definitely wheeling it all the way out to that wall on the pit exit, and you can see nearly putting tires into the dirt coming off of Turn 1. Now it gets a little bit more technical here through 3, 4, and 5. Very brave to take quite a bit of these curbs, because at points on this track, DJ, those curbs get aggressive.
Yeah, they really, really do. And these cars, not exactly known, any of these Porsches, not exactly known for liking to be aggressive with the curbing. So it takes a lot of guts and a lot of confidence in your car to be that aggressive with it, to really push the boundaries there. Now, that curb on the exit of the hairpin on the left-hand side, that's more of a flattened area. That I expect to be run pretty hard. But most of these other curbs, I'd be a little bit more wary of them. And I think it goes to show you here with just how hard drivers are attacking, just how hard they're pushing in this qualifying session.
It's a track where I tended to give a bit of leeway to these curbs, and unfortunately, well, this is not going to be a quick one at all. The open qualifying with multiple classes has this pitfall, and Joe in the Exchange Motorsports 003 is going to catch him out, and that's within his own class, interestingly. It's only one position down from him, but just seemed to be slow. Maybe he was caught up by the Spanners Motorsport 194, who was in front of him, who is in another class. And we'll see if they can get one flying, as that almost certainly wrecked the car there, and he's going to pull over Wonder, yeah, it looks like he's trying to get himself some clear air. He's going to back out and hope that he can get a better flyer here in a little bit as he really backs it up. And in front of him, Joe Stifel, definitely not on a flyer himself in the 003, so he'll start a new one. And hopefully that Spanners Motorsport machine doesn't interrupt him a second time around.
Yeah, hopefully not. He'll be more than likely hoping to catch him coming down into the hairpin somewhere around that as we check in on the second place in the open category. That is the Celtic Racing Machine. Like I said, still sitting about 1.1 seconds back of Imperial Motorsport Shake. A big, big gap that they try to make up.
Coming around through Bishop Bend. And let's see who can get a better lap this time, as it's starting to wind down. Remember, it's about 2 minutes for most of the classes. In fact, it's up to 2:11 to 2:12. A few of them up to 2:09 in the GT4 class, but still a significant chunk that is required just to set a single time. And as the Celtic racing car, Celtic or Celtic, we'll have to clarify with them, as the 62 comes around through Sunset Bend, has to make up 1.1 seconds on Christopher Pies' Imperial Motorsports team, and it's not going to be this time, as that was a slow lap for them.
Yeah, it was indeed, although they're going to be giving it a nice little bit of a tow here behind them to Mike Sachs. It looks like Sachs trying to pick up just a little bit that in the GT4 to try to take what he can. That is that number 62, that Celtic Racing Machine is there. They work their way around, That was Greg Fullwood that they were giving a little bit of a tow to, 7th place in that Marble Motors machine.
Oof, the 62 with 2 wheels off. That's going to be lap discounted for them. So that won't be a flyer. They'll get one more shot, I believe, and no more. Not sure if they can get around in time. Interestingly, it looks like we might have one of our pole sitters ready to talk to us. His teammates just hopped into the car, and that is Christopher Pies. Chris, confidence out there, at least if not, maybe trust in your teammate, as James is just headed out to try and see what he can do with that pole time. But you guys have not been in the car for some time. Is that just feeling like you have this locked down?
Yeah, it was one of those that the track was as pretty much as good as stated right at the start of the qualifying. It was only going to get warmer out there, so I think times were going to fall. But yeah, I felt pretty good at, breaking the 201 barrier. But between Jim and I, we were in Germany this morning. We did the 24-hour earlier, and so we're just trying to get a couple laps in, relax a little bit before we get into the car and do another 3 hours.
Oh, gluttons for punishment, apparently. So, talk to us then about what this pole position means for the race itself, because often in endurance racing, we hear the adage that the qualifying isn't as important, it's that race pace. Do you put much weight into having this P1?
It's always nice to be starting at the front of the field. There's less that can happen up there, and you're always able to get off to a clean start. But yeah, you're right. The qualifying doesn't matter quite as much as endurance racing, because at the end of the day, there's probably maybe 3 seconds that separate us from the back of the field, and over a 3-hour period, 3 seconds is negligible. So happy to have it. I'm not going to give it away by any means, but yeah, looking forward to getting off to a good start.
Well, before we let you go, what class did you run in Nürburgring, and where'd you finish?
We ran in the Cup class, so the same car, and we were in the second split of the main group, and we finished 6th place. So it was a pretty good run.
Yeah, that's respectable. Well, very well done then, sir. And best of luck to you, and we'll keep an eye on your teammate here to see how he fares.
Thanks so much, guys.
As Christopher Pies for the 77 Imperial Motorsports Shake car. He set the pole time, but James Huth is now out. He'll get one flying lap as he's just emerged. And as he does so, he's already got traffic that he's having to try and work his way past. Thankfully, gets to the braking zone clear in time. Let's see if he managed to luck out and gets a completely clear lap around here. It is still 1/10 of a second, just over 1/10 between Brody and Styles, the Black Flagmeister, and JRT up in the top class, but Flagmeister is in pit lane and JRT is out on track.
Yeah, indeed they are. I'm keeping an eye on their times. Looks like their first microsector not exactly great there for JRT, but they're going to have some more time to try to reel this back in. It's a long enough lap for them to try to make up. They did look pretty quick in the second microsector, so they're just maybe some time to work out of this.
And one of their rivals has given up on their lap. It looks like Palmer in the 62 has gone slow, and only 13 seconds left. He's not able to get to the line from here. So they're pretty solid on that one. And of course, we could see others try and challenge him because Albano Competición is out on track, but it's going to be an even bigger gap to make up as the checkered flag is now out on qualifying. The first one that's going to get to the line is the 27 of Mike Sachs for Backmarker Motorsports. They're currently 8th in the GT4 class. They swing it down into Sunset Bend, and it does look like a pretty good one. Costas set the quickest time for his team many laps ago, the second one of the session for them. So will this be an improvement like the timing is showing? Yes, it will. A 2:11.6 is a big jump, at least time-wise, but only up to 7th. So a single position gain. Let's check out Brody now.
Brody looking a lot better on the second half of this lap than he did the first. Little bit of weaving. I think he knows, though, that that time is not going to be good for him. Indeed, a 1:58.6, so still about 6 or 7 tenths of a second off there.
Team One's the next one up with Horace Knight in the 21 machine. 9th in that GT4 class, a 2:12.2, stays a 2:12.2 as he hits a 12.7 that time by. Looks like Adam Schick has given up from there. Mungia in the Los Muchachos Motorsports car comes in. So does Chapman for Spanners. Rudzidis for Wookie Racing is out there trying to improve on Nicky Chan's 58.7. They have been sent down to 6. Remember, they were as high as second place at one time in this qualifying, but the track evolved enough, at least during their time out on track. We heard Pies talking about how it wasn't getting any better. Well, unfortunately for Wookie Racing, neither was their qualifying time. So as the pink 258 comes to the line, let's see what they got.
Going to be coming in. Is that going to be an improvement? It's a marginal improvement for them, but it's not going to move them up at all.
Unfortunately, no. And anybody else able to take a time? Looks like, nope, Mike Sachs is done. And that is it for a qualifying. However, before we get to the grid, we want to mention that PCA Sim Racing social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. Definitely don't want to miss all kinds of awesome updates from them as to what's going on, not just during the race itself, but between. Meanwhile, let's go through your starting order here today. Black Flag Meister has managed to put it on the pole. JRT Racing will start next to them in that GT3 class. Matrix Green starts from 3rd today, and Exchange Motorsports will be P4. E2JR Motorsports is 5th, followed by Wookie Racing in the 6th position. Marble Motors, good enough for 7th, to be flanked by Matrix Purple in P8. Rounding out the GT3 class, it'll be Flying Lions number 218, starting 9th.
In the Open Cup category, it's Imperial Motorsports Shake leading the way over Celtic Racing there, who will start off P2. P3 will be Albano Competizione with Team Doritos next to them. Spanners Motorsports and Black Flag Meister Noy will round out your open field.
After that, it's down to the GT4, starting 16th overall, but Star Racing leading for them. Dreadnought will be in P2. Three Stooges Racing starts from 3rd appropriately, and 208 Racing Green Team will be in the 4th position. Then you've got P5 for Los Muchachos Motorsports, followed by 6 with Mach Schnell Motorsports as well. Backmarker Motorsports in the mid-pack, interestingly, in the 27. They'll start from P7. Alcoru Racing is in 8th today. They've got Team 1 in 9th. 10th in that class is going to be Anchors Away. And last of the 11 starters in our biggest class there in the GT4s, Team Chillax Racing will be at the tail end of the field of our 26 drivers here for today's event. They'll get a pace lap, and then they'll be on their way. They'll be starting just about the time the real race does. It's just after 10 in the morning, virtual standard time. And as we mentioned, it is an increased speed for the sun here. So that means they will go through a simulated full 12 hours over the course of these 3 real hours in today's race. And they will be finishing in the nighttime.
Yeah, indeed they will, Joe. And as we mentioned, watch for the cars to evolve as the track evolves. You're going to have drivers that set the car up to be a little bit better handling when it's super hot, right when it gets to be about noon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you're going to have some drivers who the car is going to come to them in the back stages of this race. So that setup going to be very, very crucial to see what happens.
So we ride on board with Jacob Schum, one of our many onboard cameras for today. Looking back towards the fields. Be starting on the outside of that front row. Styles is going to start the race for Black Flag Meister since he did all of the qualifying laps there. And Pies, who did not see his teammate manage to improve on his time, will be starting for that Imperial Motorsports team down in the open class. So as we see them come down towards the hotel hairpin, popular place for overtakes, often though sees drama on the first lap or two with the cars all bunched up. So let's cross our fingers that they managed to get through that cleanly. I always found that opening to these long races the most unnerving part of the race for me, DJ, mostly because I was always considered the safe pair of hands, even if I wasn't fast. So they always stuck me in at the start. So it was a double whammy.
It certainly is there, Joe. But yeah, it's very tough at the beginning of these long endurance races because you have to fight your natural instincts. This is where the field is most bunched up. It's where you can be able to catch the most places, be able to pass the most cars because of that bunched up nature of the field. But then you also are close to one another, so you have more of a chance of running into one another. So it's high risk, high reward.
Exactly. It's how much do you trust yourself and how much do you trust your competitors in those situations. It all depends. I know in the official endurance races like we have with Nürburgring 24 for iRacing, I didn't quite trust my competitors nearly as much because you didn't know everybody. But in this case, it's a league race, and these drivers all have been around each other plenty of times before. They talk. They're all usually pretty good friends. So I have to imagine, I don't have to imagine, I can see everybody has gridded up. Nobody's going to be starting from pit lane for this one. So there is trust involved out on this track today as we come down the Ullman Straits, and we'll be getting ready to race pretty soon. It's a nice 77 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface, 68 Fahrenheit out in the air in Florida for the second round of the Team Racing Series presented by Porsche Exchange. As we come down into Sunset Bend, are there butterflies for any of the drivers out in this pack? What can Christopher Styles do from the overall pole for Black Flag Meister number 96? Out of Sunset Bend now, the Porsche pace car is going to peel into pit lane. That'll give control over to Styles. He waits on it. Green flag is out. He's on the loud pedal. It's not the greatest of starts as beside him. Looks like Schum is going to try and challenge from the outside. We're already 3 wide for third place back there to the inside. Matrix Green had a horrible start. Looks like they might lose out on that podium position. Indeed, up into third goes Rattray.
A good move there from Rattray, being able to pick up on it as we jump back to that open category. It is single file there for them as they filter their way into turn 1.
Looks like that one's going to be clean, but behind them, the GT4s, Banjo-Paget and Star Racing is way beyond the rest of them. Garrett Taylor is able to get a good jump over Coomer, and behind them, looks like fourth place going to go to Ayers, who gets a great run coming out of the first corner, overtaking Brodigan for that position. And he tries to fight back into turn 3, but nothing doing as our leaders for the GT4s head down to the hairpin.
And look at that gap that Star Racing has already been able to pull. A real hornet's nest in the back, though, as everybody squabbles around. Whoa, that's the 20. Losing it, that's Team Doritos.
Oh, looks like they made some contact. Gary Reese for Spanners Motorsports finds himself off the course in the very first lap of the race. Big hit, too. I'm checking to see, and unfortunately, Team Doritos has a meatball. So right away, they're either going to have to use their spare car or they are going to have to sit and wait for extensive repairs.
And that is not the way you want to start off this race at all, as we ride on board with Robert Rattray in that E2 Junior Motorsports machine. Little bit squirrely there coming through Le Mans. You could see that car wanted to break away from him. He lost about a tenth to JRT Racing. But as we said, it is still early going in this race. He's got plenty of time to just keep in that slipstream and wait.
The 20 machine, Team Doritos, did take a tow. They had too much damage, but they've also been given a black flag that they'll have to serve for that incident. Unfortunately, as we come down into Sunset Bend, and Marble Motorsports is all over the back of Exchange here at the 003, having to play defense into the first corner as they come around for the second time in anger and trying to break deep. Looks like Craig not able to get that pass done. Exchange will be able to hold on to P5.
Hold on to it, but it doesn't look like Marble Motors is going away quite yet. Try to take a look there to the outside of turn 2. Not exactly paying off. He's going to have to woe it back underneath him, but they've got to be careful. That is Nicky Chan, an always fearsome driver, coming up right behind in that Wookiee racing machine.
Yeah, but if it's a surprise to see Chan down this far, usually fighting up at the top in the series racing here in the PCA as they come down into the hotel hairpin once again. Craig now sandwiched between the pair of these two and heading up towards Cunningham Corner, but he's dropping off of Kang. Not sure that he's going to be able to really put much of an attack on here. Will he start to go to defense instead?
Well, looks like he may have to, as that gap's starting to expand a little bit. Chan just slowly trying to put some pressure onto the back of that Marble Motors machine. The gap only about 0.4 of a second. You can see there Chan taking a good apex through the right-hander as they work their way onto the Flying Fortress straight.
Had a bit of an attack here in the GT4s as Three Stooges Racing found Coomer and the Los Muchachos trying to see if he can go by through the hairpin. Brodigan has caught up because of that, and there we see on board from his GT4 breaking down into the Cunningham right-hander, and unfortunately that's not quite going to get him the spot, but this is all for second place here in this class.
Yeah, Star Racing with Bandio Page behind the wheel, absolutely pulling a mega gap here. Already 4 seconds up on Los Muchachos. It looks like we could be in for another dominating performance for that Star Racing machine.
Had a bit of a self-spin for Steve Linz and Team Chillax. They've gotten back out onto the course, but looks like the car is rather damaged. So we continue to follow this battle up at the top of that class down into Le Mans. This is where they really need that great exit. These cars not known for a lot of slipstream, but that is big wheel spin coming out of Peter. And it looks like Brodigan's going to get a clear shot to the inside.
He's going to hold the inside, but it doesn't look like Coomer's going to make it easy for him as they come down into the corner. Brodigan has the corner, looking for the fight back. The crossover is Coomer. They're still going to be side by side. And is it a double crossover? It is.
Wow, great heads up by both drivers, and this is getting fun down here. Unfortunately for them, they're losing touch with second place now. It's become a battle for third, and Los Muchachos will come out the victor, at least on this lap, as they retain that podium position.
Yeah, able to hold on to it with a little bit of a fade coming down the pit straightaway. I think Dreadnought had to back out ever so slightly as we jump back to Nicky Chan. Wookiee Racing still continuing to work on that Marble Motors machine. I like the patience here. I like the calm demeanor of that 258 right now. Not too anxious to get ahead.
Had a black flag served for Mach Schnell Motorsports, who looks like they had an incident where they spun and Team 1 got into them. Interestingly, it almost looks like maybe they got a little help from the 208 car, but I'm not sure. The stewards don't seem to think so, as that must have been a self-spin according to them. Racing Team Green carries on in 5th position currently in that 208 as we see a little bit of a look from the 8 of Brodigan, just ahead of Racing Green team. Still trying to see if they can steal that third place right back down through Collier Corner and into Tower. Ooh, bit of a shallower line there from Peter, who I'm not sure if he was on attack or defense there.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of 6 one-way, half dozen the other. Matrix Purple here, Mike Patterson behind the wheel. This is closing in on that battle that we've been following for 6 with Wookie Racing. And this could maybe put a little bit of fire underneath Nicky Chan to try to get by that 996 up ahead of him.
Oh, wow, he is right on the rear bumper now. And he's got a decent exit. Is the slipstream going to be enough here through Big Bend and down into the hotel hairpin? Craig stays defensive, holds the middle of the line, drifts back to the right-hand side. The door is open. Chan is going to try and step through. He gets to the inside, down through the hairpin, but he's got to out-accelerate him and doesn't have the grip. Nicely done from Craig.
Very nicely done, but Nicky Chan now going to have a little bit of a preferred entry into the right-hander if he can hold it around, coming down into the corner. Harder onto the brakes is Nicky Chan. Looks like he's going to have the move done unless that Marble Motors is able to get a crossover, and they're not going to be able to get that done.
Never say die. The 258 has managed to get into P6 now. Can they set off after the 003 up in front? And good timing, too, because Patterson in the 29 has just approached the back of them, so the Matrix Purple car probably would have been interested in trying to see if he could change that order, as we get a great run from behind there as we jump from the offboard of Peter. It looks like Brodigan is on the attack, and similar to what we just saw with Nicky Chan, he's going to take the open door, and a little bit of an early turn-in from the Wasp Muchachos car, maybe trying to dissuade him from making the move.
Well, and what that battle is really allowed to have happen now is the 208 Racing Green team able to close in behind to this battle. So this quickly becoming a 4-way fight right now, Joe.
Yeah, still for second place. Banjo Page is an impressive 8.8 seconds up, and that's after 4 laps. So almost 2 seconds a lap faster than all the other cars in his class in that Star Racing machine. As we watch them down through Tower. And a very good exit from Jason. He's going to be able to get side by side. This can be a little bit sketchy, though, coming through Bishop. You can see how wide he has to swing and eventually has to give it up.
Yeah, just not able to make it work there. Now what he needs to do is just get a good run through through Jean Debian, but this is Rattray trying to work on the back of that JRT Racing machine. This battle for P2 in the GT3 is not anywhere near done.
Schum left the door open himself and was not able to make it stick, unfortunately, did Robert Rattray. As we come back to the fight now amongst our GT4s, a little bit of a look from Peter down into Sunset Bend, but Taylor will deny him Three Stooges car. Looking for the launch, but doesn't have it. Here comes Coomer once again, and this is to snatch second place in this GT4 pack away.
This battle just absolutely ebbing and flowing there. Brodigan trying to see if he can pick up some of the pieces as he works his way through. Three Stooges now demoted, but able to get a better run to the inside. This is going to be a drag race into 2.
Oh, but a little earlier on the brakes there for Taylor. Oh, no, he's the right amount on the brakes. Peter goes deep. He's going to give the spot back. Brodigan almost snuck through as we rode on board with him.
Yeah, he did indeed. Very, very close there. Brodigan now on the attack a little bit. He's going to try to get a little bit of a whiff of the slipstream off of that number 14. And look at that. There's 208 Racing Green team getting interested.
Coming back at him. I said they were starting to catch up, and they are there. So as they continue to try and make something out of, unfortunately, looked like a poor exit there out of the hairpin. Oh, and did we have a pass? Yes, we did. Rattray up into P2. It's not done yet. Down into turn 3, and there it is there. So Schum has a chance to try and come back at him, but it looks like Rattray really has a lot of pace today.
Yeah, it certainly does, but here comes Schum on the attack. He's going to get a healthy dose of that slipstream as they work their way through Gurney Bend, trying to see what it is. Rattray going defensive down to the inside there. Schum going to try to carry some momentum around the outside, maybe look for a little bit of a crossover. Ooh, Rattray getting a little bit squirrely. This battle's not done.
Yeah, he's got a great exit coming off of there, does Schum, and as he manages to get fully side by side, even a nose a little bit ahead, he's on the outside, down into Cunningham. Is he going to hold on? Yes, he is. Whoa, quite a move from the 84 team that looks tenacious today.
Yeah, we were saying that there's a lot of speed for Rattray, but it just looks like Schum able to be a little bit more decisive when it comes to those braking zones, really able to dive it in on the brakes, and that's going to make him a hard car to pass in that 84.
Certainly, I think that's part the car and part the driver that's making it difficult as they come onto the Ullman straight. Schum might have to play defense again. No, that was a poor exit from the E2JR Motorsports car in front of them. Is that some of our battling GT4s? No, that is lapping GT4s. Looks like Styles, the leader, going to go by Lynn Wilson, one of the drivers that had a penalty at the start, and Horace Knight as well.
Yeah, so I anticipate probably about 2 or 3 laps until the leaders will come on the back of this pack, these battling GT3s or GT4s right now, as it continues to be Three Stooges leading Los Muchachos, Dreadnought and 208 behind. Whoa, that was a little bit of a look, and it could cost Los Muchachos there, as there's an off for the 14.
Oof, at the same time we had that, Team 1, Horace Knight just had a little bit of contact as well. And that was actually with Robert Rattray. That was with our third place driver that contact happened down into turn 3. So it's suddenly all kicking off. We're not even 13 minutes into a 3-hour race.
No, we're not. I expected a little bit more calmness here from it, but Rattray now going to have to try to regain 2.5 seconds and hold off Matrix Green, who's now right behind him.
Now that was with the 21 car, and here's the replay. Down into turn 3. They caught the grass. Just caught the grass. I suspect that's going to be a black flag that the stewards are going to give them.
Yeah, obviously not meaning to do anything there, not intentional, but an errant mistake there from them. So that is obviously going to hurt that E2 Junior Motorsports machine, as now they try to get their way on by, I believe that's Lynn Wilson. Yes, it is.
I'm trying to take a look to see if we can see any damage on the car. Not quite from that angle, but it does look like they are holding their own in terms of pace, so maybe it was a light enough touch. Yeah, I'm looking at the left-hand side of the car, and it does look to be decent, as well as the nose. So they got away lucky this time. Don't need to take extensive repairs, because it's way too early probably at this point for them to try and stop in for an alternate strategy as we go side by side through turn 1 now. Brodigan and Ayers, with Ayers retaining that third spot. A little wide though at the apex of 3.
Yeah, a little wide, not exactly able to get it woed down underneath him, so that's going to be Dreadnought Racing. Remember, this is all a little bit topsy-turvy, courtesy of some of that contact kicked off by the Los Muchachos Motorsports machine, 14 that's now about 10 seconds behind this battling pair.
Coming down into the braking. Whoa, way deep there from Brodigan. A little too deep, and a cut back now from his rival as he almost sideswipes him, but Ayers manages to stay out of him. I think he manages to stay out of him. He gives him a little bit of an apology. Now he's going to let it right back. So Brodigan is into P3, but he fights back now, breaking deeper down into Cunningham. Another undercut between the pair of them, and he has to let him go as Brodigan takes the 8 into P3 once again.
Yes, he does. Dreadnought Racing looking very, very strong to be able to get themselves into that podium spot right now, but we'll have to see if they're able to hold on to it, because I don't think that 208 Racing Green Team machine is going anywhere either.
Certainly not. Well, this has been quite a start to this race with a lot of drivers. I'm not sure thinking about the fact that it is such a long race. We've seen some aggressive moves. We've seen some mistakes out there. And we said it before, we'll say it again, and you'll hear it probably 100 times. You got to be in it for the long haul in this race. And, well, here's a part where it's hard to look at the long haul as they come down on the Ullman straight here, dealing with all sorts of traffic. Scott Kessel having to give way to Schum and Rattray.
Indeed, and trying to pick up some of the pieces on this is the 84. That's Schum behind. Is he going to have a look down into sunset? Rattray saw it coming, covered him off a little bit. Schum had to back off. That cost him about a tenth and a half.
Definitely compromised the line of Sedal there back and forth. He's going to fall off. In fact, here comes Dewey Kang with an excellent run. He could try and attack down into turn one. He gets to the outside as a defensive move from the green machine is going to at least keep him to his side, but not fully behind. He's got a leg out ahead. If he cuts down, this might be job done, and he does. That is P4 now for Exchange Motorsports.
A good run there for Exchange, and I think for them, now they're going to try to focus their sights up ahead onto the back of JRT, maybe put themselves into podium contention with Matrix Green in their rear view mirror. They're going to be hoping that E2 Junior and JRT fight a little bit more, maybe see a little bit more of that side-by-side action, some of that fierceness that we've seen startlingly here in the first 15 minutes or so.
So through the Fangio chicane, they go, finally separated a little bit. Is this where the GT3s get something of a calm? Schum's still close that he could try an attack on Rattray within about half a second there. So that certainly could erupt themselves. But down in the GT4s, it's definitely separating. Unless you go back to Kummer and Kessel. Looks like Peter has lost out quite a bit. Now this is interesting. So Kessel is caught up to him, and Peter was fighting with Brodekin and Ayers earlier on. So did he have a slow lap? Seeing a 2:24 in there.
Remember, he was the one that went off there, Joe, coming down into the hotel hairpin. He had that little bit of off, little bit of contact, and that's what set him back into this order.
Ah, that's right. So the 14 is now under threat. They've got Patterson in the 29. He's not in the same class. He's going to be able to get to the inside. That's Craig in the 996. Both of them are battling as well. So each little tussle won't want to give way as much as possible, and it does hinder both Craig and Kummer.
Yes, it does, but equally held up there, though, which is crucial, as now it looks like Craig going to try to have a little bit of a fight to the inside. Excuse me. Is he going to be able to do that for Kessel, rather? Kessel trying to fight his way around the best he can, but he's just going to have to stay in line here.
Down through the first corner once again. Probably a bit scary in these cars with all the understeer and all the bumps, trying to get the car to just grip and turn in. But then they get into some slower turns here in the next part. This used to be a faster one, another long left-hand sweeper, but it got changed in the early 90s to what you see today. And they separated briefly before now Lynn Wilson is able to go by, but Lynn doesn't have any blue flags as he unfortunately is on the same lap as these drivers and trying to make up for his early black flag.
Indeed, Lynn trying to close in, involved in that first lap contact and the subsequent penalty there. So Lynn's got a lot of work to still do, about 15 seconds off the back of Black Flagmeister Noy there. And so really just trying to gain in time, and it can be very disheartening, Joe, when you're this early in the race, so you find yourself this far down. But as we've seen, anything can happen in an endurance race such as this. So the best thing you can do is just keep on going.
Indeed. Now, the bad news is that Team Doritos is 2 laps down from the leader in their class. So they actually just let Keith Morgan by. And that's from the faster class that they're not wanting to get into the way of. But Chris Pies has some big distance. And 2 laps is not impossible, but it'll take incredible pace from Wilson and his co-driver, which I do not see on the list right now. So I'll have to go and check our stats to see who's going to be joining that car.
Well, remember, because it is that open category, they can technically run it without a driver. That was Dreadnought coming down into pit lane.
Okay, and we're about 20 minutes in, so definitely not done on fuel unless they think they can work it backwards from here, which is an early time to make that call, because that locks you into that strategy. You can't do anything else from there to change it up. I wonder if they had a little bit of contact. He is taking tires, so this does seem like a regular stop.
it's very, very strange, Joe. I would have anticipated those GT4s to be able to run about an hour or so, potentially doing a 2-stop strategy. So they clearly think that they needed a little bit of a splash and dash and just decided to go for it here. As they exit, they find themselves in some pretty clean air right now. So yeah, not really sure what that's about, but we'll see if it plays out.
Yeah, it's like I said, it locks you in, but I mean, they were in quite a few battles for a while, so maybe they thought 20 minutes of this is enough. Let's take an early stop. Let's get off sequence from everybody else and be able to run our own race since we think we can run faster. Maybe that's what their thinking is. As we take a look now at Kessel, still on the heels of Peter in the 14 machine, that Los Muchachos car. Still trying to see if he can play catch up and get those 11 seconds down on Randall Ayers in front of him in the 208. And he's definitely towing along Kessel here in that 104 car. Not sure how much he's towing him along, but couldn't hurt.
No, it certainly can. And the one thing that Kessel will be able to do here, now that we've talked a little bit about that pit strategy potentially, is he'll be able to sip the fuel a little bit, probably back off down the long almond straightaway, coming down the front stretch, just kind of let the tow pull him along. He doesn't have to be working nearly as hard, and he'll be able to save a little bit of fuel here, maybe extend this stint by a lap.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't talked about the fuel saving all that much, and the drivers probably wanting to get somewhat tricky on that one. As we watch now the battle between Schum and Rattray. This is for second. Also 8.5 seconds behind Styles and the Black Flagmeister 96. Now, we cannot count that one as a done deal, especially this early on. Remember, Christopher is going to have to hand the car over to his teammate as well. And he's got Derek Dirksen and Terrence Tong currently out there, currently signed up for his team. So we'll see whether or not they will be able to match his pace, because that could change. And there's always the ever-present threat of just getting caught up in someone else's problems that just aren't your fault.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know exactly what can happen here in a longer race such as this. As we watch there just a little bit, that E2 Junior Motorsports machine stepping the toe out of line there, catching a little bit of the dirt. That's those kind of problems you've got to watch out for. If you apply the throttle when you are on the dirt just in the fractionally wrong way, it can really throw you off, throw you for a spin. You've just got to be careful.
Let's see how much they're using. Oh, and there starts the weaving, trying to see if he can break the slipstream. Now, they are allowed to do that. Obviously, they cannot try and weave to hinder the speed of the car behind, just to create a roadblock for them. But they can try and break the draft if they so desire. And coming around to finish yet another lap, Rattray seems to feel under threat enough that he needs to try and shake Jacob Schum. And just about through the first half hour of this race pretty soon. We got a ways to go on this one. Coming through the first corner once again. Rattray not able to get rid of the 84 quite that easily.
No, he's certainly not. And Joe, you and I have talked about this. The weaving tactic, it's a little bit of give and take with it. Yes, you're able to potentially break the draft, but the other problem is you're creating a longer line for yourself to run, and that can slow you down a little bit. And I'm not sure I love that decision from Rattray here, especially with Dewey Kang and Matthew Sedal not too terribly far behind them here. It just kind of allows for yourself to be vulnerable as he works his way by one of the slower GT4s. That's a better way to try to put that JRT racing machine at a disadvantage. Overtake at the right opportunity. Hope some lap traffic is able to catch him. Not necessarily that weaving is as important.
Yeah, I honestly put myself in the Michael Johnson camp, who we're going to see a little bit later, or hear from rather, in this broadcast. He'll be joined by Rachel Whiteford to cover the middle part of this race. But yeah, I agree with him saying it seems kind of silly. I know Max Verstappen kind of made it popular, as there's a big mistake from Rattray at the absolute worst time. And coming down in Le Mans, closer than ever, Jacob Schum will really get the slipstream. And once again, the weaving returns. I don't think Schum is quite close enough, but that was exactly the opposite of what the one car wanted in that moment.
Yeah, certainly did not need any of that, did not need any of that added pressure. You can tell he's already feeling it just with the lines that he's taking and obviously that weaving. Let's see if he does it again. Yeah, he's going to duck way down there. And now here's the thing. Schum is ready for it. He knows there's going to be weaving, and so he can almost predict it a little bit and not lose as much time as staying in that slipstream as much as possible.
Exactly. And we ride on board now with Jacob Schum, watching him weave through these corners. Coming up to turn 5 now. Oh, and way off the apex for Rattray. That was not a tight apex. That's going to help Schum at another good spot. Flying down through Big Bend into the hotel hairpin, but just doesn't seem to have the straight line speed that the one team does. And that's making life quite difficult. You can see how much he has to crank in to get around that hairpin.
Yeah, it's a very, very tight corner. Is now, as a result of that backup, Exchange Motorsports, Dewey Kang right up behind these guys. Matrix Green not too far behind them either with Matthew Sedal. So they've got to be careful here. This is what that weaving can do. It can just back up the field here, Joe.
I think it's definitely backing them into Kang at this point, that 4th place driver. Will we see any of them maybe try to break off? Maybe split the difference between an early and a late pit strategy and just kind of play it halfway. See if that gets you into the clear air that you need to try and outrun your rivals without fighting them directly on the track as well. On to the Ullman Straight. It wasn't horrible, but it also wasn't great. Rattray immediately goes to the inside. This time, it's not a slalom back and forth. This time, it is just straight up covering him. Now he goes back to the racing line to get a better entry into the turn. Schum has got him on the ropes right now.
Yeah, he does. He is just taking up space in Rattray's head rent-free at this moment. Really, really into the head of that number 1 machine. And as a driver sitting behind, I guarantee you Jacob Schum's smiling a little bit because he knows it's just a matter of time until he can start to push the envelope a little bit, throw his nose this way and that, fill up the rear view mirrors of that E2 Junior Motorsports car, and really start to apply pressure and see if he can force a mistake here out of Rattray.
Well, he's already gotten a couple of them. We've seen him have little slip-ups here and there. And he knows that he can get into his head. He knows that he can make him bobble. Just needs to do one at the right time and hope that the setups are different enough that he can try and attack and dive through and make that 2nd position, which he had briefly. He was up there before, just couldn't seem to hold on to it. And Rattray has been making life difficult for him as they continue to watch the 96 car just peel farther and farther away. In fact, I don't think they can see him on any of even the long straights of this track at this point.
No, not really. He has really pulled out a good gap here, has Styles, and that's sort of the story for all of our leaders across the whole classes here right now. The closest battle for class lead is in the open category with Imperial Motorsports Shake only holding a 5-point advantage over Celtic Racing. Chris Pye's doing a good job there, but everybody else is tickling double digits here.
And on to the Ullman Straight, which I believe is the longest one. Yeah, he can't even see him at the end of it at this point. We come back now to battle down into the hairpin. And out of there, this is the pair of Komats and Campbell. But this is not a battle for position. There is Campbell, our 2nd place in the open class, rather. Back to Sedal in the meantime in the 55. Who has caught up to Dewey Kang as well. So they keep backing up and finding more friends here. And the GT3 class to where it is now a 4-car fight for 2nd place. Now, I wouldn't be surprised as well if Nicky Chan began to join. He's a little ways back. He's about 5 seconds down the road. But we know that Nicky knows how to be fast.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. Although he has been losing a little bit of time to Matthew Sedal there over the past 2 laps. Nothing too major. I don't know if traffic necessarily played into that as much, although as I look at Nicky right now, it does look like he is navigating his way by Volker Krebs and Edward Trepay, and so that may have cost him a little bit there. You can see that Wookiee Racing driver working his way by those 2 GT4 drivers right now.
Remember how we saw Jason Brodigan stop into the pits early and we were wondering what was going on? Well, the 8 car has actually been running pretty decent laps here. Now, the first 3 were 212s, but he was able to do 212s at the start of the last stint. So I wonder if this next one is going to wind up being critical. If he can keep that 212 pace up, I believe that will mean that he is outpacing the rivals that he was racing with, because they were hitting 213s during those laps.
Yeah, indeed they were, Joe. And, you know, if that's the case, if they needed a splash and dash for that Dreadnought racing machine, if that's what they thought, I like the strategy here coming in early. You were involved in that close of a battle before. You might as well come in, try something a little bit different, roll the dice, make that overtake in the pits.
Schum's on a good one. I thought maybe he was going to try it, but apparently not this time. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd say that Brodigan is on it. He just set his personal best, a 2:11.8 on that lap. So he is flying. We'll have to watch that when the rest of the pit stops take place to see where he winds up in relation. But right now, the relationship between P2 and P3 and the GT3s has been within about 3 to 7 tenths of a second for pretty much the last, I'd say, 15 laps here.
Yeah, I mean, they've been running pretty much line astern this entire time, and it's really a good pressure cooker of battling right now. Just waiting here, ostensibly at this moment, I think some lap traffic could start to maybe play a factor here. That's Jeff Lashaway, 20th overall in the Backmarker Motorsports GT4 that they're going to be coming on. I think for Rattray, he's going to be maybe trying to use him as a little bit of a pick, buy himself some breathing room between himself and Jacob Schum.
The great thing is we've only had one DNF that I can tell. Anchors Away have been parked in the pits. Scott Kessel in there. Not sure if that was due to damage or what, but nobody is in the car currently. I'm not sure if they're going to be returning if they're this early on and nobody is even in the car. So we come out of Tower Corner once again, and Rattray finally manages to get himself away from the 84, definitely using that lap traffic down through Collier into Tower to great effect. Lashway just being at the wrong place in the wrong time for them. And there is Sidall there in the Matrix green car. Dewey Kang is the one chasing in the blue Porsche number 003 down the back stretch. Let's see. Oh, and excuse me, this was actually a pass. So Kang gave that one up, and was this also affected by the traffic?
I think it may have been, yeah, big check up there. Matrix Green recognizing that opportunity and just going for it. So a good job there for them. Joe, as we like to say, the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh away.
Got to keep your head on a swivel and know what your situation is, where to place the car, and that's exactly what Matthew did in the number 55 team. So great heads up from him. Sure, he'll get a pat on the back for that one once he returns. He shares that car with Nielsen and Dyer. So he'll probably be handing that over when we get to the pit stops, which likely going to be somewhat soon-ish. I think we got another 20 minutes probably before we see the GT3s on the lane for most of them. Their goal, I'm sure, is probably going to be able to make 1 hour so that they don't have an extra pit stop and split it into a 2-stop race, DJ. But GT3 cars at a track with a couple of long straights, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure what the fuel mileage is going to wind up being.
I'm not sure either. I've got to imagine we're going to be looking at about 40 to 50 minutes per stint, though, for them, which is going to set up a very interesting run at the end. We could see some last-minute splash and dashes, specifically from the GT3s. The GT4s, a little bit longer of a run. I anticipate them to about 50 minutes to an hour.
those guys tend to have some pretty long stints. Is down into Sunset Bend once again. That's Garrett Taylor there for Three Stooges Racing with Komats, who's not battling for position. And then a couple other cars in there as well. 208 Racing Green, who is trying to find his way past, along with Patrick Adamczyk and the Black Flag Meister Neue 733, who's easily going to be able to overtake all of them now, and he's able to continue on his merry way. And underneath the lapped car of Komats, Ayers able to now set his sights on Taylor for that second position. It seems like most of the battles have become a case of best of the rest here in our three classes today.
Yeah, although this one, that battle for P2 in the GT3 class, definitely starting to come back together a little bit there. Peter Kummer, that they just passed, and ooh, that's not going to help that battle at all, as that was Rattray getting a little bit wide coming through turn 2. Traffic again, though, starting to play a little bit of a factor, bringing these two closer together.
Sometimes that's what you got to use to your advantage, though. And behind them, Dewey Kang wants that spot back from Siddall. He got within 1/10 of a second down into the hairpin. There you see them now. I think some of that was helped by the lap traffic. Kumar and Reese just slightly in the way of them. And a look down to the inside. He's too far back for that one, but he's definitely trying to see if he can just rattle that number 55 car.
Yeah, this is just that pressure cooker there. You see him kind of positioning his car a little bit out of line, but very heads up, positioning it in a way that's not going to actually compromise his entry into the corner.
Rattray had a problem. He's down to 5th. This was into Tower, and this was lap traffic. And it was, Anchors Away managed to come back out on track, but I don't think Anchors Away is at fault here. They're holding their line, and he's lucky he didn't punt them off.
Yeah, he very much is, and for viewers who are curious about that, it is the job of the overtaken car to get around the other car. If you are a slower bit of traffic, it is expected that you hold your racing line and be predictable. So I completely agree with you, Joe. That blame falling squarely on the shoulders of Robert Rattray.
He's got to be kicking himself on that one. He had such a good battle going on for that second place. Is behind him someone ducking into pit lane. That's Team 1 there that went through there. As we now hop on board from Nicky Chan, who got on the radio commenting on the scariness of that car pitting in. It is it's not the worst pit in that I've seen in some cases, but it has caused some issues and some wrecks in the past.
Yeah, indeed. And it's really just from a sense of anticipation. To be able to get that turn in, you've got to take a wide entrance coming through Sunset, really diamond off the corner a little bit, and try to slow yourself down, and drivers sometimes behind aren't ready for that to happen, and so that's where the problem can come in.
Christopher Stiles, this is your overall leader, 11.6 seconds over Jacob Schum. Now that Schum has clear air, what is his pace looking like? I guess we're not going to know, because last one was a 2:02.9. That was not a representative lap for him. Fastest lap for that JRT Racing Team car was a 1:59.0. That was the second lap of the race. Same thing for Stiles with a 58.5. And none of them have been able to touch it since because of the lap traffic. This is Pies down here in the open class. This is the Cup cars, smallest of the classes, with only 6 out there running, but 9.5 seconds over Rodney Campbell and Celtic Racing currently. And then our leader down in the GT4 class, Shabal Banjopaje, now in the number 24. The biggest gap that we've got of any of the three, 39 seconds down to Garrett Taylor in second place. This has been a stomping, but we've got to remember that we've seen this story before, DJ. So Star Racing, have they learned their lesson from that last tale?
Well, I don't think any of it's going to fall on the shoulders of Banjopaje, as he did this last time. It's Hurst Larry drivers in that car that are going to have to be very careful and try to keep up the pace as much as possible. Shabal doing exactly what he needs to do here at this moment.
So as we see one of the drivers trying to give chase here in that GT4 class. This is the battle for 7th. That's Alcoru's Volker Krebs leading Max Schnell's Edward Trepet as they come on to the Ullman Straight once again. And as we said, the increased time on the sun means that, yes, they started at 10 a.m., but it is already past 1 in the afternoon virtual standard time here. So this is when it's probably going to start getting the hottest out on the track, and it is indeed at about 104 on the track surface. And with cars that want mechanical grip, this will test your car control.
Yeah, it certainly will. As we've had another driver popping down pit lane. Looks like Los Muchachos Motorsports coming down to get their service. Again, a little bit surprising that it's these GT4s that we're seeing in first. Not exactly what I would have expected, Joe.
And in fact, it looks like, is that a driver change? Taking sweet time. Yeah, it looks like David Purdy's in the car, and now they're able to get going. So Purdy's taking over for Kumar, and the 14 is going to be able to return to racing in 8th position. As we watch Nicky Chan with Robert Rattray now in front of him, offering a carrot to the Wookiee Racing machine. We look out the back of the E2 JR Motorsports #1 to see whether or not that pink car can chase him down.
And that pink machine has been making slow and steady progress through the field. Remember, we were a little surprised by them being bogged down in qualifying. I think this may be a car that's set up for a little bit later in the day. It certainly looked like it's been coming alive as the day has progressed.
Indeed. So still in 6th, which is where they began this. But they could just make up a couple spots. They got time. They certainly seem to have the consistency. We haven't seen any real major issues that I can recall for that 258 car. And they'll want to continue that throughout the race. Cutting back across with a late apex down through 5 and a big balk for Rattray, who cannot catch a break with the lap traffic. But this also means a blocked track for Nicky Chan. No place to go without making a very risky move. And I think he does the smart thing in there as he just sets himself up behind to keep the pressure on.
Yeah, he's already seen the Rattray is prone to making a mistake, so he can just keep his nose behind here and try to pick up a position for free, as that should be good enough to be able to move them up into P5 if he is able to force a mistake there out of the #1.
Oh, I'm not sure if the mistake or the lap traffic is really what he's looking for, because that's now twice in a row that Rattray has been compromised and just doesn't seem to be helping him out today. But they've also got the pit stops coming up soon. Just about 10 more minutes, and we should see many of them try and hop on in. Not missing anything at the front of each of our fields. If you're just joining us, Black Flag Meister leads GT3, Imperial Motorsports Shake leads Open, and Star Racing leads GT4. This is really where the action is currently. Rattray, who's been put onto the back foot lately, and Nicky Chan, who's decided now is the time to charge.
Yeah, Chan looking like he is on the aggression here, trying to see what he can do, falling back a couple of tenths here. It looks like that car may be a little bit more trimmed down, maybe a little bit more downforce running around here for the 258, as he seems like he's just losing a little bit of time as they go on these long straightaways.
Down into turn 1 once again, and Wookiee Racing making sure to hold Rattray accountable, but starting to fall off a little bit. More traffic in front of them. Patrick Adamczyk in that open class, and it's the same spot as before. And that was a much better move down to the outside for Rattray, so at least he's being observant about how to place the car.
Yeah, he'll be a little bit thankful for that, but he's now got even more lap traffic to deal with him. That's David Purdy directly ahead of him, able to kind of stave off any attack there from Nicky Chan behind him, trying to navigate Purdy as they work their way through the Fangio chicane. He's able to get around him. Is Chan going to be compromised? No. So both able to get through there nice and easy. They now have some clear track in front of them.
All right, next up on their list is, let's see. Wow, they don't have any traffic for quite some time. Chad Dick in Albano Competición is a good ways up the circuit. And he is in the club class, or the open class. So, in fact, it looks like only Pies and Campbell are the last two on the lead lap in that class. They've taken quite some time, nearly an hour to lap them. So we're only going to see 3 laps difference, it looks like, between those top 2 classes in this field. As we come back now to Matrix Green, looking from Sedal's perspective, still with Jacob Schum, JRT racing driver, is back up to where he began this race as well. Didn't have the greatest of starts, DJ, but I got to give him credit. Jacob stuck with it and he's not completely out of the woods with Matt back there, but despite all that fighting with Rattray, he's handled himself well out there.
Yeah, he really has, and he's just really kept applying the pressure here, which is what I like to see out of him. He's been slowly and steadily working his way forward, not making aggressive moves. It looks like he's pretty happy to run behind JRT here and just see if there is anything to be had.
Yeah, JRT sitting just half a second up the road from them, and they're getting close to pit stops. So are they in communication over the radio? Are they talking about what is up next for us? Will Schum hand over to Brody on this one, or will he stay in the car early in the race, being familiar with how it's handling and breaking down into Cunningham? Doesn't try and make a move this time. Up in front of them, Star Racing's Banjo Paje is currently going to be in the way, and he's going to stay off the left-hand side. That allows Schum through, but not quite Sedal. And once again, we see traffic play a rather significant factor in today's race.
Yes, we do. And so now it's going to be up to Sedal to try to close that back in a little bit more. But I don't necessarily think that that Matrix Green machine is going to be in a load of trouble or in a big hurry. Like I said, a lot of patience being exhibited here out of the 55. Doesn't look like they are in the biggest of rushes to get to the front. And a lot of times, Joe, that's the way you get on the podium in an endurance race.
Shockingly, we haven't seen many big movers in this race. The most positions gained by anybody is 2, and we got a couple that have managed that. Looks like Black Flag Meister, I'm going to get that name right, Noya, is up to into 4th in class. And then down in the GT4s, the 27 car of Backmarker Motorsports has Jeff Lashaway up to into 5th. I think they share that with Alcoro Racing there in that class. The 242 Volker Krebs up to 6 from there, starting in 8th.
Yeah, indeed, they are. As a little bit of diciness back for P5. Very, very confounding situation. Wookiee Racing trying to get their way around some lapped cars there, but they're able to sort it out nice and easy.
So as they head through the hairpin, looks like they're going to be coming upon more of that lap traffic now. Edward Trippett is the next one up in the 718 car, and they should be able to catch him, I think, before this lap is over. The question is, will they get him out of Le Mans or before Le Mans, where they have all the differing lines? And it looks like, ooh, man, getting very close to the back of Schum now. Sedal has suddenly turned the wick up.
Yeah, he really has. He's trying to put that pressure in, and what that tells me is that pit stops are imminent here for all of these classes, Joe. That means they think they're going to be pulling down pit lane here relatively imminently if Sedal is pushing as hard as he is.
Looks like it's going to be after the Ullman straight even here, as they are catching up to Trippett. Oh, this is a great run. So does Sedal go for it? Is he going to be saving fuel? He takes a little bit of a peek. So he thinks about it, but I don't think that was a serious attempt. So as they break into Sunset Bend, either of them going to be pitting in? Nope, they're both going to stay out. Now they properly catch Ed in that 718 car. He stays off the left-hand side, seeing him coming.
Yeah, he's going to get out of the way for them. Both cars able to clear JRT and Matrix Green, so they're going to be nice and clear there. Up ahead of them, though, they've got a little bit more. That's Volker Krebs they're going to have to deal with, and Steve Linz about 7-8 seconds up the road as well. Ooh, Krebs has got to be careful. This is a tricky place, even though it is flat out relatively through here, working their way through turn 2. It's very narrow on the track. Both drivers, I think, got lucky there getting by Volker.
Yeah, good timing. Big Bend can sometimes be a hassle, but other times be nice and easy to overtake. This has been one of the best battles for the last 20 minutes in this race, as Matrix Green is trying to make JRT sweat as much as they can before we get to the pit window. And coming down, or at least towards the end of the pit window, rather, I should say, coming down into Cunningham, still clear enough that Schum doesn't have to worry about an attack down into that right-hander. And checking to see our leader, how close he is to pit entry and whether or not he'll be coming in this time. Looks like Black Flag Meister is got just about a corner and a half to go.
Yeah, indeed, they're working their way onto the Ullman Straight right now as we keep our eyes focused on this battle. That's Steve Linz right up ahead. I said they'd be catching them soon, and indeed, they are. Linz trying to stay out of the way there, but that's going to catch out the 55 a little bit. Almost contact there between the two.
Oh, man. It's been a rough one for that traffic thus far. And so now Dewey Kang has to Sidal has to regather up that time. It does help Dewey Kang, though, it's worth pointing out. He's only about 2.1 seconds back. Kind of makes me wonder what the difference in lap times are. 2:01, 2 flat 4, 1:59.9. And last lap was quicker. As they cross, it was a 2:01.6 for Sidal, 2:01.5. So only slightly quicker for Kang. But he is making minor inroads, but it might not be a while before we see them actually have a real battle.
No, but we also have seen Dewey Kang have some good speed in that car, so maybe that's an issue where after pit stops we could see that start to fly off. We've had it off! That's Matrix Green off!
Oh no, after such a good race up to there, I think it was a desperate move. It was a desperate move down into turn 5. You're going to see a little bit of curb there on the inside, and what that put them off, and they thought, okay, now's my chance, and unfortunately, it backfired, and that allowed Kang to steal third from them.
Yes, it has, but Joe, as we watch this here again on board, yeah, you just see that little bit of opportunistic. There's the door open, tries to go for it, contact, and that slowed down JRT as well. And Exchange Motorsports now all over the back of their tail.
Wow, man, this has been a fascinating one with the back and forth and the mistakes. We said it before, mistakes being a huge factor in who winds up where here today. Pace is one thing, but if you can't manage to keep from losing time out on track, that certainly is a hindrance out there. It's all down to who runs the most laps here in this race. Once that checkered flag falls, as we watch now, Dewey Kang, man, is Schum having problems with traffic? How did he catch him so quick?
Well, there was a little bit of that contact there that happened when Matrix went off. As Exchange comes down pit lane, we've had the first of our pitters, E2 Junior as well. GT3 pit stop starting to fire off.
And interestingly, that was both drivers that seem to have had issues here. Although I guess Exchange Motorsports not quite as much, but definitely E2 Junior Motorsports gave up some positions with an issue as we come down into a side-by-side exchange down through and cutting across. Dave Craig having a real close encounter with the rear bumper of Banjapagia. That was our GT4 leader as he swung across a different line. Matrix Purple is also pitting in this time.
Yes, they are. So it definitely looks like we are reaching the end of that pit stop cycle for the GT3s. That means that we should see the rest of the field here in within about the next 15 minutes or so, if my numbers are right.
Absolutely. So definitely some swapping of teammates. Rattray allows Ian Simon to get in the car. Patterson puts Mario Gonzalez in there, and Kang is back out on track. Yep, Dewey Kang did not swap drivers. The 003 is going to be the first amongst those that took a stop to return. That makes me wonder, did Kang take fuel only, or did he take tires? I think that was fuel only for the 003.
That's interesting here at this stage in the race, Joe. I would have anticipated drivers to probably want to take tires in this first stint. If you were going to try to double stint, I would look at maybe doing it on the second one when the track temperatures get a lot cooler.
I just checked, no tires. So I don't know. I think if it was me, I would play it as give me the fresh ones at the end. Give the anchor the best chance possible to give chase and see what they can do. It looks like Styles, our overall leader, is now in, and they are also swapping drivers. Derek Dirksen is getting into the car. Schum is also in. Will he trade with his teammate Travis Brody as he looks for his pit stall, and he finds it?
Oh, he overran it, though.
Oh, no. And that is going to be costly. That will be what will feel like multiple seconds out on the track, being stationary, giving up that time. And looks like Schum is not swapping drivers. He is staying in the machine. Jordan Dyer is in the Matrix Green car, and they have since come in, so he's taken over for Sedal. Black Flagmeister also are in, and we mentioned that before, as Derek Dirksen is indeed, looks like he is taking tires here. So this is going to be full service, I think. Will it? Actually, no, they are not up on the jacks, I think. Nope, they were up on the jacks. And Dirksen is back out and rolling. So that's our leader, who returns behind Dewey Kang because of the difference in pit strategy. The 003 sacrificing grip, maybe a little bit of pace to get that track position.
Yeah, Joe, and what's interesting here is Wookie Racing is able to extend this stint longer than anybody else out on track. Flying Lion Racing are also able to do that as well, but they're kind of out of the picture here. But Nikki Chan, very, very light on the right foot. This could come back to play here because everybody else who stopped before the hour mark, they may have to go 2 more stops. Chang may be able to make this work on just 1 more.
Interesting. Okay, so we watch them carry on, and Chan's going to go around for 1 more lap. So going for a 2-stopper. Keith Morgan, though, we have to wait for him to cycle back around to see if the Flying Lion team will do the same. But that should be the only 2 that are looking like they are good to try and go for a 2-stop race in the GT3 field. However, slightly different story down in the open class, as pretty much everybody is still out there. I think Albano Competición has been in and out of pit lane at one point. Actually, yeah, they were just in and out of there, so they just took their stop. And Lynn Wilson was in 26 laps ago, but that was due to a wreck at the very start of this race.
Yeah, indeed. So as everything starts to reset itself here a little bit more, looks like Flying Lion Racing coming in now. Black Flagmeister is going to find themselves down in 3rd, courtesy of those pit stops and taking tires there. So they're going to have a little bit of a fight back on their hands. About 15 seconds up the road to Exchange, and a whopping about 45 seconds up to JRT, who will inherit the lead of this race when Wookie Racing comes on in.
But it's looking like it's going to be a very different strategy for JRT with that 30 or 23 second stop. there. That is very, very short. So they must be trying to split it up into shorter afterward stints. It looks like Flying Lion is putting Avijit Barua in the car now. And so he will be able to get back out. That's going to be marginal because they pitted in with about 20 seconds left on the clock before the exact 2-hour mark. So keep an eye on them to see if they have to stretch it. And my goodness, Wookiee Racing has been unbelievable on their fuel usage. They are now going a whole lap more.
This is remarkable, Joe, and crucially, this is going to mean that I think they're able to make this race on one more stop. Everybody else will probably need a splash and dash or some mega fuel saving in the second and third stint. Wookiee Racing should be good to go to the end.
Got another stop in our our open class. James Huth taking over for Chris Pies. Both drivers talking before about how they ran in the Nürburgring 24. Looks like they're well rested enough, DJ, because today nobody's been able to touch them.
Yeah, they are just absolutely out there in dominant fashion right now, really controlling the pace in that open class.
So we continue to watch Wookiee Racing. 31 seconds down to Schum, who has taken his stop, but the 258 needs to come in for fuel. See if they decide to take tires on that. I almost feel like if they've been light-footing it this much, they probably haven't been abusing the tires either, DJ. So this has got to be, I would think, a fuel only, or if they do take tires, the only time they will.
Yeah, I have to agree with you as well there, Joe. I think if they're able to really be soft on those tires here, they can maybe stretch it out and come back into a position where they could be theoretically fighting up for those podium positions after running around in as low as 8th earlier in this race.
Wow. Okay, so they continue on here. Let's see if they pit in this time, whether or not they will finally, or whether or not they will carry on, rather, as they are going to carry on. Wow. Unbelievable stuff here. What fuel setting are they running?
They've got to have that engine turned down. Either that or they are doing some of the best lifting and coasting I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, this... I didn't expect the cars because I thought for certain all the others pushed it right to the limit. Now, granted, they were running a much quicker pace, but I wouldn't think you'd be able to get, what are we at, 3 laps more than some of the cases than some of the other drivers. Wow. Well, he's interrupting a bit of our flow here, so we're just going to have to go through the fields as the 1 hour mark on the clock is done, so it's time to bring you the Porsche Exchange race update. The Porsche Exchange has been family owned and operated for over 40 years, located in the North Shore of Chicago. The Porsche Exchange has grown to be the largest volume Porsche dealer in the entire Midwest, and you can find out more at 4Porsche.com. That's the number 4, or follow them at Porsche Exchange on Instagram. And starting on the top, it is Wookiee Racing's Nikki Chan, who has managed to stretch this out impressively far and certainly has a leg up strategy-wise, but will that be enough for them to take the win? Jacob Schum currently is on a different strategy themselves, almost the opposite. Very short pit stop, 23.9 seconds for JRT Racing, as Schum has stayed in the car and is going to probably try and quick stint this one to see if that will give them an advantage. Exchange Motorsports, likewise, going for extra stops potentially today. 40 seconds and keeping Dewey in the car with no tires, fuel only, back out in third. Derek Dirksen for Black Flagmeister. Styles was leading for much of this race. They return outside the podium, but a much more traditional strategy for them. Minute 10, they took tires and fuel. They're back out in that 96. They've had the pace, so maybe that traditional call will help them. Jordan Dyer is going to be doing the same thing in the Matrix Green as he took over from Matthew Siddall. He sits in 5th position as E2 Junior Motorsports behind them did the same in the 6th spot. And they are now down one position from where they ran before. However, they had to take their spare car, it looks like I'm seeing. So they had a little bit of damage, unfortunately. Matrix Purple sits in the 7th spot as Marble Motorsports is in the 996 behind them in the 8th position as well. Neither of them having taken their spare car, so they're in a much better position. And then you've got Avijit Barua and Flying Line Racing last in the class, DJ, currently running at the back of the field, but also on a bit of a long call strategy going right up to the hour mark.
Yeah, indeed they are. And as we cycle down into the open category, it is Imperial Motorsports Shake with James Huth behind the wheel. They have made their pit stop in and out on lap 29. Celtic Racing right now in pit lane. Looks like David Palmer will be taking over control of that car as behind them, Peter Roth in the Black Flagmeister Neue machine just now coming in. They were able to extend the stop a little bit longer, and looks like they are going to be able to jump their way up a couple cars in the field. Back in behind them, it's Gabriel Albano for the Albano Competizione machine, the number 13, running around in P4 in class, with P5 in class, Spanners Motorsports, the 194. That car currently piloted by Dean Chapman. Remember, they got into a little bit of problems earlier in the race and are having to do a little bit of catch-up, as is Team Doritos, the number 20, who is 6th in class. They were the ones who were most caught out by that opening lap incident. They run a healthy gap, 33 seconds behind Spanners Motorsports and a lap down on their other open class competitors.
I can report the 258 did pit in. Chris Braun now in the car. They went down to 6th after a minute 9 stop. Meanwhile, up at the top of the GT4, Star Racing has Shabal Banjopaje and has been running this since the beginning of the race. It is now an impressive minute 24 over the nearest car, who is the 208 Racing Green Team. Joseph Evers has taken over for Ayers in that car. And they do have a clear track behind as well as in front, so they're not under threat currently. Bit of a lonely race right now, but second place is looking in the bag if they keep this on the road. Bob Moore and the Dreadnought Racing Team. Been an interesting call from them. They took an extra pit stop a little bit ago. They're the only one of 3 or 4 here in the GT4s that have taken an extra pit stop so far. And I believe the only one that have taken it scheduled. The others have had some sort of damage up till now, so keep an eye on them. Chris Pippin in the 4th position. Three Stooges Racing, a minute 50 stop last time, longest of anybody of the GT4s. Not sure what that means for them, if they had some sort of damage to repair or what, but we'll try and get some info from them. Meanwhile, down in 5th in the class, it is Christopher Costas sitting there, and he is up 2 positions from where he began in the Backmarker Motorsports car. The 27 sees Jeff Lashway manage to take off and take a bit of a rest as Chris takes over. David Purdy is the next one in Los Muchachos Motorsports. Peter has since let him go. They took another early stop. Now, not as drastic as what we saw from one of the other cars, or some of the other cars, and the 14 is on an interesting strategy that I don't think anybody else is on, so we'll see if that works out for them in the end. Andrew McCune is the next one, and the hard-to-miss German liveried Alcuro Racing 242. They are out since the last 2 laps and have gained 1 position from their gridding spot. James Legault and Mach Schnell Motorsports took over for Edward Trippett in that machine and still have the spare car in the pocket for them. After that, you get to Jack Stevenson in the 104, anchors away. We thought they were out of it. Their demise was reported way too soon, apparently, as they are back in 9th, but they are a lap down from the leader in their class. Team Chillax Racing is in the same boat as they are actually, no, a worse boat, I should say, 10 laps down from the leader overall. And so they actually just went off, as Bruce Froby was off there, and Horace Knight behind them in Team 1 is last on the entire field in the 21 car, and just trying to see what they can salvage from today's race. Unfortunately, they're about 7 laps behind the next car up. This concludes tonight's race update brought to you by the Porsche Exchange, and it also now brings us to our next team, Rachel Whiteford and Michael Johnson taking us over. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us, and the best of luck here in the middle part of today's race.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, and DJ joining us back again after an hour. As you heard from him, it's myself and Michael Johnson. Of course, fantastic to have a real-world racing driver here with me in the booth tonight, Michael. But this race, an endurance race, we've got three classes, of course, as we talked about earlier: GT3, Cup, and GT4. And that's leading to us having, of course, a variety of speeds here on the racetrack. And this is not exactly the widest of circuits.
In parts it is. If you think about the run down the front straight right by the pits, it's very wide, but the rest of the track really narrows down, especially as you're finding your way through turn one and you're 5 wide and everybody's trying for position, and then suddenly you can barely fit 3 cars in there. The majority of the track, yes, you're right, is very narrow and difficult to get around, and you really have to pick those moments very carefully, as we watch here on board with Derek Dirksen. A car going past him was right on the edge of that. I mean, it is tight in some of these places. So this is a track that you do really need to mind your P's and Q's and be absolutely millimeter perfect everywhere.
It would certainly seem the way. JRT Racing leading the way at the moment with Exchange Motorsports and Black Flag Meister. We mentioned them a second ago. JRT, your leaders on the screen here. Leaders actually pretty close together, getting up on some lap traffic there ahead of them. But we are just over an hour in right now. In fact, on track is 35 laps for these guys. And we've had already, as you noticed, Michael, a good... Oh, behind the leaders. Not sure who that was that just lost it there. I think it was a lap down car coming out of Le Mans. Someone just had a moment there. Not one of our leaders. Okay, we'll continue with the broadcast as we have it. But, you know, we talk about... One of the big things I think I've noticed in Sebring racing is guys coming off pit road, Michael. It seems to be those times when we have pit sequences, the pitting out into that funnel of turn one really seems to be a trouble zone. So now we're out of that cycle. Things should be a little easier through that real tight spot of the track.
It should be easier there, and it's a thing that's talked about quite a lot, going out of the pit lane, and you really have to work together. As drivers, if you're the one who's on the track and you are coming up, unless that person that's coming out of the pit lane is your direct competitor, you kind of need to work together. Otherwise, you know, make it tough for them, of course, but you have to work together to get through there and make sure that you can both work together on track. And I think sometimes people miss that. They forget that they're about to also do a pit stop, and well, they're going to need somebody to be nice to them when they come out of that pit lane right into that very fast turn one.
Yeah, it certainly is. Looking at some of the guys running down the Ullman Straight now, diving into another funnel turn here. Actually, it's got Shaibal Bandiapadi coming from Star Racing here, and you'll see this. It's a very wide entry, really, into a broad kind of funnel, and it just tightens up so much under the bridge before kicking out once again. It's a bit like an hourglass. It's wide in, narrow in the middle, then wide out again the far side. And you have this huge kind of cannon effect shooting down this front straight, which is fantastic for race ends. But as we mentioned earlier, it does run down here now. You gotta be careful about that pit wall. It does kink out towards the end. It looks straight, but it is not. So if you are multiple cars wide there, that will be a bad spot to be in. If you are hugged up against it, let's put it that way. But this first section is one of my favorites, I think, Michael. And we're doing a bit of track talk here. The guys before had a lot of racing focus going on. We'll look at that in a second. But this first section is one of my favorites. Running through turn 1, 2, 3. The S is there. Down towards the old hairpin. And through Fangio. This whole part of this track to me is Sebring.
It really is a lot of the personality of Sebring. If you took that, and I would say probably Ullman Straight through 17, and then that whole first section all the way down to hairpin, and then it kind of sort of changes personality a little bit. It's like, okay, we're going to go from one runway to another runway, and that has a personality to it. And then you head around towards Tower, and so you go through Cunningham and Tower, and that back half through all the S's back there and into Le Mans. That's kind of another personality. But but they do tie together very well. Honestly, when I'm out here driving the track, be it in the sim or in real life, it's one of those places that it has a fun kind of playful feel to it. Now, it doesn't feel so playful when you make contact with a wall or another car, but otherwise it is just a lot of fun because the two different portions of the track, at least in my mind, I kind of divide it into two halves, is just a blast. And right now we're on board here with Ian Simon. He's going into this later section of it as we watch him go through the Bishop's Bend here, gets hard into the braking, trying to close up. Now, Ian is one of the drivers I have driven against with alongside, or however you want to call it, and we've had some pretty fantastic races. Ian is a very talented driver, and looking forward to seeing E2JR Motorsports do well today. I'm trying to not curse the team because I think I have had that effect on them before, but watch as they work their way through turn 17. So I always say it's a half joke, but turn 17 is called turn 17 because there's 17 ways to go through it. It's not a lie. There might be more. There's so many ways to attack that corner as we watch them coming down towards turn 1 now and trying to just set the car up to fly through that corner. When you get into turn 1, trying to sneak around the outside, comes back over to the inside as they work their way through 2 into the braking zone for turn 3.
Absolutely are, and turn 17 is a 180-degree corner. It doesn't seem like it goes all the way back on itself, but it does. We're here with Ian Simon, E2JR Motorsports, running through kind of our greener section of this track. The whole street circuit feel of Sebring definitely is very visible in a lot of these places. It's bumpy, it's narrow, it's twisty. It really has a good vibe to it, but yeah, Sunset's 180 degrees. That corner seems much wider when you're actually in it, and he is right. It feels like there are so many ways through that corner. You can go for the wide entry to the tight exit. You can go for a tight entry, wide exit. There's just 2. There's lots. A very, very corner. But it is actually slightly tighter on the way in than it is on the way out. It's more of a regular 90-degree corner coming out there from under the bridge. But we digress. We're talking about track geometry here. It gets a little bit exciting sometimes. But these guys are definitely going to be seeing... We saw earlier some guys having strategy calls with tyres. Now, we've seen some people going for a 2-stopper on this rather than the 3. This track is not kind to tyres. What's your take?
Well, because there's so many different track surfaces, and I gotta say, iRacing has done a brilliant job. Oh, a little bit of contact there. Chris Brown coming out of the corner. Wookie Racing trying to get through there, and well, a little bit of surprise with one of the slower class cars. Let's hope it didn't cause too much damage.
You know, I think this is where the old adage of just let the Wookiee win really comes in. Because he'll just rip your arm off and beat you with the soggy end. It's going to happen that way. But I'm resisting the urge to make a Wookiee sound now. But I love that team name. Just want to point this out. Wookiee Racing. I love here. I'm sure they did it to make us have to say it. Because it's so hilarious.
Well, they were talking about it, and I heard them in one of the conference rooms, and they were saying, let's make Rachel giggle. So we're going to call it Wookiee Racing. That didn't happen. It worked.
It worked, but it didn't happen. Yeah. Now, this circuit here, of course, it is much more abrasive, I think, than a lot of other tracks, especially Road America, comparing the last event to this one. We're definitely seeing a far more aggressive surface on the track here, which is going to put these cars to a bit more of a test. But the weather seems to be pretty good for it.
Yeah, the weather's holding out pretty well, but you're right, with the surface here, and again, iRacing has done a brilliant job with this. This track has probably 5, 6, 7, 30 different versions of pavement or concrete or whatever on it, so the way the car reacts in different sections of the course is really true to life. iRacing honestly did a brilliant job mapping out this course and designing the way the car reacts over different bits of pavement.
Yeah, absolutely does. Of course, don't forget we can check out a very different surface yet again. In fact, a much newer surface than Road America and Sebring at repaved Watkins Glen on Sunday the 5th of June for a 6-hour double points race. That will be a monster one. We cannot wait for that. But a slight segue here, there's a vicious argument currently happening in the broadcast chat where we're normally looking for useful information about drivers and positions and black flags and things that we can bring to you, the viewer, but no, they're all arguing about Doritos. including
Which
Racing
flavor?
Control and one of the series administrators, Doug Atkinson. Doug is a fan of Cool Ranch, and Cameron Obenon, one of our social media mistress, believes that ketchup flavored chips are apparently a good idea.
Sure.
Don't know
I've never
why,
seen
but,
them.
heretic. Either way. Oh, that was a interesting pit in. That's not a pit in. That's yeah, Derek. That was different. I think he wanted to pit in, then he chose to not pit in, then to pit in again, then not.
That may have been a late call to not pit. A lot of times the teams will have an intern radio, but there's also the chance that trying to go around there. So one common thread of all the 17 versions of going through turn 17 is you got to be on throttle just before the bridge, and if you get on a little bit too soon, well, the rear end's going to get wiggly and it's going to make you go into the pit whether you want to or not. So my thought is that's probably what was going on there. Got on the throttle just a tiny bit too soon, and the next thing you know, he's making an unexpected pit entry that he has to recover from.
Yeah, that definitely seemed to be the case there. I think he did get loose in the middle there. The car's really kind of gripping on traction entry and exit, apart from that one middle point where the car is applying power. So definitely a bit of a shift there for them. James Huth there from Imperial Motorsports Shake. And give us your opinion on Doritos and which is the best and superior flavor. I'm going to say nacho cheese, but that's just me personally.
Well, it has to be the one that applies to racing, remember.
Is there one?
So, well, I'm thinking like some of these flamin' hot kind of things. I mean, they've got those. Because it's really hot inside these cars, and honestly, when you've got a big graphics card in your computer and maybe the air conditioning can't quite keep up with it, could be tough. But let's look at Ian Simon here. Ian is really breathing down the neck of these guys in front of him, trying to get around the 77 car. Now that is an out of class car, I believe. Yes, 77 is out of class. That's going to be James Huth. In the open class right there. He took over from Chris Pites not too long ago, about 8 or 9 laps ago. So he is really getting into his groove now, but hoping to get a nice little tow from the out of class car with Ian just making a big hole in the air for him.
Yeah, absolutely does seem that way. Well, our class leaders are right now JRT Racing, Imperial Motorsports Shake down there in the Cup class, of course, JRT leading the GT3s, and Star Racing heading up your GT4 class with Chabal there. All of them have pretty commanding leads right now, Michael. We're seeing a big break. The onus, it seems, is on these guys to lose this, not win it.
Yeah, but there's an interesting thing to note. Right before you and I came on, paying attention to what was happening, who's pitting when, who's running long. If anybody watched the Long Beach race with the sports cars the other day, yesterday actually, they will have noted that there was one driver in a prototype who got in a little trouble early, was suddenly 20 seconds back, and then they said, "All right, qualifying laps, let's go." So he burned the fuel, caught back up, and I won't give away the end of the race, but it was a very good ending when you can go from 20 seconds back all the way back up. And it really depends on how much fuel you can or should use. And that's where the art of this comes in. Do I run it on fuel map 4, which is full on, burn it all up, let's go as fast as we can, or do you drop it down to 3, 2, 1? You wouldn't run 0, that's full course yellow, and we're not going to be doing any full course yellows here today, I don't think. But if you drop it back to 1, then you're going to save a lot of fuel. And I'm guessing that might have been what was going on earlier with Wookiee Racing. They were running some very nice lap times, very consistent lap times, and it seemed like they were just a tiny bit off pace, which tells me they're really running that lower fuel map, I'm guessing. We'll probably find out at the end that, oh, no, we were burning it all up. I'm just really good on fuel. So some people are like that. I'm one of those people that I can go and I can do a full stint and do like an extra lap over the rest of the people on my team. So sometimes it happens that way. You just get someone who's unusually good on fuel.
It seemed that way. See, my problem in racing was always that I burned up all the fuel and I was slow. So, can't win, I guess.
Well,
right now, though, our field is spread out into this sustaining kind of period of the race. This middle hour really is when you guys are putting down the laps, making sure these cars stay on the black stuff and not on the green stuff. Because to finish first, one must first finish. And I think this is when the race has dropped its kind of tempo, Michael, down from that initial hour of push, 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 get the good start. And then we haven't yet reached the last hour of, okay, got to make places now. So this is when people's attention, I think, will be the lowest. We've got some new drivers in for the majority of the field here. Of course, 2/3 fair share driving applies. But I think everyone's attention will be the lowest here. What do you think?
Well, yeah, this is the unfortunate time of the race where I think people get lulled into a sense of, we're just gonna kind of cruise through here, it's all good. And the next thing you know, somebody drops a wheel or hits a curb a little heavy like we saw there, and suddenly ends up bouncing off a wall back into traffic or something. And that's just because you get kind of lulled into this sense of security. When you're racing, you need to be racing. It's all about, and I've said this before, you may remember recently we had a guest on, and he and I were talking about the 3 Ps being: 1, patient. And if you get the patience, what comes next, it builds on the patience, is the precision. And then after that, it's pestering the ever-living whatever out of the person in front or behind you. But each one builds on the previous one. Racing is not about speed. Everyone's head listening just exploded. So racing is honestly not about speed. Racing, especially endurance racing, is about efficiency. And that's why when you can make those long fuel runs and you can preserve your tires for a double stent and be just as fast at the end of that double stent as you were midway through. So being able to do things like that, that really is what makes you through, be able to do the longer runs and win. That's what puts you on the podium.
Oh, we got a guy who really, really, really wants to run on the grass there, but I suppose the same thing applies to suggesting, and this again, once again, one of those things that blows people's minds, when you say the brake pedal isn't for slowing down either.
Well, it's funny. I was doing a private coaching session this morning for one of my clients, and we had an extensive conversation about why are you using the steering wheel to turn the car? And again, a lot of heads just exploded. It starts the turn, but everything after that happens with your feet. So you really have to start focusing on how do the feet work at the different parts of the corner to make the car go better, more efficiently through the path of the race course. So yeah, it's the steering wheel isn't necessarily for turning the car.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a race car driver like you are, but I'm a mountain biker, and let's just say pitch is a lot more sensitive for us, and braking, front and rear braking, of course, we can do that separately, unlike a race car, which of course you can change the bias in. A lot of cars can change that on the fly, but you can set up a brake bias in a car to apply more front or rear brake, which has an impact on how you corner, of course. And we have the same impact, of course, riding bicycles down ridiculous hillsides, in that we can independently control those, and that pitch of the bike with those brakes is going to impact how the bike steers. And the same thing applies to a race car, of course. And once you stop thinking about the brake as a slowing down tool, more of a weight transfer tool, and that's incredibly important to something like the Cup car, of course, in that second class here, with Imperial Motorsport Shake leading it. That has no ABS, no traction control, no nothing. These guys, James who's behind the wheel there, this is a full visceral experience of a Porsche race car. This thing is just no holes barred. No traction control, no ABS, no assists. This car is you and the vehicle. And your braking is, well, in any car, of course, but more so when you do not have ABS interfering with you. It allows you to basically push the car's weight to one side or the other, forward or back, because if you think about it, and this is turning into the technical class for the middle hour, of course, but if you had infinite grip, infinite weight on a wheel, it would corner at any speed.
Sure.
Because a car will corner at any speed as long as the tire is pushed onto the rubber. And it can turn if it can stay on it. Of course, if it lifts up, it won't turn, which is why you're transferring that weight. When you brake, the car dips forwards. That front wheel will suddenly get more grip and it can steer in, but you're going to change that as you start to accelerate. So that point, we talk about it, especially with turn 17, that is so critical because in that middle point, the car is so light. The car is loose once it reaches that middle point near the bridge, of course. And you also have to factor there's going to be some cooler track under that bridge as well, which is going to definitely change how the tire wants to suddenly grip. Yeah, we definitely turned this into the science class of the race, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of science. There's so much concentration on physics when it comes to racing. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to get behind the car and mash the gas and make it go fast. And there's so much more to it. And I think a lot of people are discovering sim racing and realizing, okay, well, in sim racing, I can hit the wall or smash the car up and it doesn't cost me anything, because people take their real cars out to the racetrack, even their street cars out there, and they enjoy them, they have a good time, but they can't really drive all the way at the limit because they need to drive their car home. So we watch a little interclass traffic here. This is getting nicely threading that needle. Is he going to make it all the way past coming down the straightaway? Yep, looks like he's going to get through. Nicely done move through there, trying to get around that lap traffic without disturbing them. Now that's a sign of good racer, good racecraft all around. There was no need to mess up any of these GT4s right here. These GT4s have a race of their own, and if you're out of class moving through a lower class, you don't want to mess them up. Let them have their race going on.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And there's this strategy and there is etiquette, of course. In a multi-class race, in most cases, let's pick Le Mans as an example. You have the very fast prototypes and you have your GT cars, then you've got, or the GTs, then you've got down to the GT3s, or let's say IMSA with GTD, right? And there's a distinct speed difference, of course. These classes are a lot closer in speed, so the passing takes a lot more work. Now, the etiquette part is you need to respect the other race, whether you are the faster car or the slower.
Yeah, and there's also a common misunderstanding. Oh, have we had... Looks like we may have JRT Racing in the pits. Yeah, looks like Travis Brody is going to hop in the car. They're doing, looks like they're going to do tires and fuel and driver change. Jacob Schum out of the car for JRT Racing. And it looks like Travis Brody is going to hop in the car. They are currently down to 5th in class. And still taking on fuel. But let's take a look here. We've got our P6 car, Chris Brown. Yep, Chris Brown and Wookiee Racing with that really long stretch early on. They are up into 5th place, while JRT Racing has fallen due to their pit stop to 7th place. So this race is going to really have an interesting kind of feel at the end. As you take a look here at Travis Brody driving the car, driving his sim rig there. See out the front of his car, we kind of get to see what he sees. Notice he has that triple monitor that comes way around. It really gives you a feel of being inside the car.
Yeah, I think it does, of course. And this strategy call, this is almost bang on halfway through the race. So I'm assuming the first stop they had was just fuel. This is the fuel and the tires and the driver swap, and the last stop with, I'm guessing, 3 for these guys. Michael, if you can elaborate on that, sorry. But I'm thinking the third will again just be fuel. This appears to be the standard go fast drive race car 3-stopper for a 3-hour race here.
Yeah, these cars will run 50 to 60 minutes on fuel typically. I haven't really looked very closely at it since the update came out. They did some changes to the fuel rate and to the tank size. So I haven't run any long runs personally. So I don't know how long they are actually running here. I guess we can go back and take a look. But you really have to have that type of information if you're going to do an endurance race. You need to know, all right, I'm on fuel map 4. How long can I go? I'm on 3, 2, 1. How long can I go? So you want to know exactly how much fuel you need in the car to go the whole race, and how much you need to use. So when you get to that last part, that last bit, you fuel the car exactly what it needs, maybe one lap more, because you don't know how it's going to go, because we do it to time plus the lap. So let's say there's 8 seconds left in the lap. Well, you're going to get a whole extra lap, or there's 8 seconds left when the person crosses the finish line. That's when that white flag comes out. So we need to think about that and go, oh, I've got another entire lap that I have to do here that I didn't necessarily calculate for.
Yes, that would seem the way here, of course. And balancing this out, we've seen some guys looking at a 2-stop here, which is bold, I think.
Sure.
3-stop seems faster. Of course, you can run slightly lower on fuel for that first stint, which gives you more ground over the other drivers. Most people, I think, are going for that run to the tank on the first stint and then short fuel at the end. If you can go short on the first stint, you're going to have a faster race car, which means you can pull distance early on, then maintain on the next stops, which seems to be what we're seeing from people like JRT, which could be the good call here. But it's going to depend, of course, because going down pit road another time is going to cost you, but is it going to be gained back is, I think, the real question we have.
Right, and how much time are you losing by doing a more fuel-saving version of the race? Are you going to make it to the end? Is that last quick splash and dash worth it? So let's say you're doing the typical, you've got let's say a 50-second stop for full fuel. Well, the next thing you need to know is how much am I going to fuel at the end? If somebody's running long and then the second one long, that last fuel stop might only be 10, 12 gallons instead of 20. And that's a huge difference in the pit, the cone to cone in the pit time.
Would seem that way. Well, we've got a chance for a chat to one of the teams right now. We're going to bring up Edward Trippett here from the Max Schnell Motorsports team, the 718 there in your GT4 class, currently running 6th place. Edward, how's it going for you guys?
Well, we're struggling. Obviously, coming out of the blocks the way I didn't help the cause for the team. But we have a lot of strong drivers. Feeling optimistic that we can hopefully, limit the bleed, if that's the right way to say it, and stay optimistic. But making right out of the box, I made a big mistake trying to be a little bit too aggressive too soon. Should have laid back, put us in a tough spot. And of course, at the very last lap, the tires just went away a lot faster than I was ready for them, and did another spin. So kind of didn't want to start this way, but if we can minimize the bleed and come out of here with some good points, we'd be happy.
Well, endurance racing, of course, is not about how you start, but how you finish. Are you guys in a damage limitation strategy right now to try and take everything you can from this race now?
Well, I think in the end, the car wasn't damaged, so we're just going to let everybody drive drive their race. Our hopes is the changing conditions will, make it difficult for other teams. We've really practiced to handle that. When the evening comes along, we'll see how that plays out. So, to your point, a lot of things can change, and got our fingers crossed that can happen.
Also, Mike actually has a couple of questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. What are you kind of guiding James with now? So James is out there, he's in the car, he's putting together some pretty good times, fairly consistent. Are you giving him specific ideas, or are I guess watching traffic all around him? Are you trying to get him to go as fast as he possibly can? Or are you really looking for that slow and steady wins the race kind of feel?
We would say the last or the latter, the slow and steady. We're not really pushing any one of us. We don't really do that as part of the team dynamics. It's all about really staying out of harm's way. If there's any, which again, we didn't really do well at the beginning, but it's about staying out of trouble. And so when we're coaching each one of the drivers, it's really helping them to make sure they understand what's around them and when it's necessary, but a lot of radio silence as well.
So are you using yourselves as live spotters, or are you using a piece of software to do it?
We do it ourselves. In fact, we only have each team member takes a rotation during the race. So we have, but because we have a four-person team, this time we have one driver sitting out, kind of being a master crew chief, if you will, kind of helping us along. But each one
Kind
of
of
us
running strategy, as it were.
pretty much running strategy. But back to your original question, each driver is allowed to run their race. We just make sure they know what's around them. We don't have any of that software turned on, so I use the DRE. I believe some of the other ones use the, I think it's called Crew Chief, and so those are all turned off. It's all. We even have a spreadsheet each lap, with times, expectations. So it's pretty detailed.
Well, that's fantastic. There's a lot of work, and that's the way we do it in real life. I got to say, it's really cool to see you guys doing that, because when I go to Sebring in real life and we're working with one of my teams, we're out there driving, but there's somebody with a spreadsheet and it's showing, okay, lap time, boop, pop it in. Oh, we're off a quarter second. Oh, we've used a little bit too much fuel. Are you guys watching fuel take up a lot, or are you kind of just taking it as it comes?
Especially the fuel. And to your point, each lap we record the times versus what we would hope for. And so the fuel management is very important to us. The other thing has been, I don't know if the team members have had background in doing this, but this team has really got a lot of knowledge about doing it. So Johan has been really the major player for us to bring these spreadsheets forward, and we just fill them out and go forward, and it's really amazing how they play out. I'm surprised, but they do tell a tale.
Yes, they do. Years and years of practice will get you there for sure. I want to say thanks for joining us in the booth here for a little bit. I will let you get back to your duties of watching what's going on with the drivers on track now.
Well, we want to thank you guys for everything you do. We want to thank the sponsors. This has just been fantastic. Can't tell you how much fun we're having doing this. Porsche Exchange, obviously Porsche themselves. And so thanks again, you guys, for everything you do. Look forward to watching the video after the show.
Well, thank you. So, Rachel, when you try to do endurance stuff on the sim or even in real life, do you have as much going on, or are you one of the, I'm just going to turn the software and let that do its thing kind of people?
To be honest, it's only been the sim for me in terms of cars. But for bikes, I do actually do enduro riding, and it's all spreadsheets there. You do have electronic timing on you, but you really can't beat paper, because when you're working with a team, you've got to basically keep track of things and keep track of the numbers, keep track of the math, because a computer can make mistakes. One wrong input can ruin a race. Whereas if you have paper, you can go back and check it again. You have to do the math each time. And even if it's just a spreadsheet on a computer, again, you're doing the adding up. You're working through those numbers. And when you're actually running strategy for someone, you can see a lot more clearly that way. I think, yeah, computers will help when it comes to actual programs tracking things, but there'll always be that extra level of security of knowing you've gotten the math right, the numbers look good, and everything's going to actually behave as it should.
Well, if you think of it like the computer is silicon, like a rock of silicon. Paper beats rock, but scissors beats paper. So I'm a little curious how that one comes in. Although, you know what, I think we might have Chris Pites here ready for us in a moment. Let's go ahead and bring Chris in and let's have a talk with him.
We absolutely shall. We've got Chris Pies here from Imperial Motorsports Shake, the winners last time out at Road America. Chris, how is today's race going for you guys?
It's going pretty much to plan. Jim's doing a heck of a job right now. I think he's extending our lead out, which is nice. And yeah, it's a nice Sunday afternoon here in Florida. It's great.
You make it sound like you're out for a Sunday drive down to the Keys. Not quite, though, I think, on the racetrack. How's traffic behaving right now?
The traffic's behaving really well. One of the difficult parts right now for us in the race is the pace in the Cup class is pretty much identical to the GT3s in a straight line. So typically, when the faster classes would come up on slower class cars, they'd have all the straight line speed in the world to make a very clean and easy pass, but not so much between GT3s and Cups. In fact, I think our Cup car might even be a little quicker than the GT3s.
So it's definitely unfortunate looking like the corners that are placed for them to make the pass, but that's obviously the worst place to make a pass in endurance racing. How are you guys managing traffic with the GT4s? What's the over-under kind of like on your difference in speed?
Yeah, no, the gap is, or the traffic at the GT4s has been great. Everybody's been very respectful. Because we have a bit of a lead baked in right now, we're taking our time and making sure we're making clean passes. We're not, passing anybody on the apex, just to make sure everybody's comfortable. So yeah, no, we've been fortunate to not have any problems or any close calls yet. It's been like I said earlier, just everything's going to plan, and couldn't ask for a better race so far.
That is absolutely awesome. Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
Oh, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Porsche Exchange. Without them, we wouldn't have this series, and it's great, and hopefully we put on a good show for them and all the viewers at home. So, and thank you guys for doing the broadcast as always.
Got some questions from Michael actually before we go, so we'll just toss it over to him.
So, Chris, quick question for you. You and I have raced hammer and tongs, going door to door, mirror to mirror, nose to tail, sometimes a little more than we should. But I noticed a little bit earlier, you and Ian were out there nose to tail going down the, I want to say it was the Ullman Straight, and I couldn't tell who was pushing who. Are you guys, we all race together. We know each other. Are you playing together? Is it kind of a friendly thing, helping each other out because you're in different classes?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was one of those things that I know how Ian races. He's a great driver, and I was trying to give him a tow for as long as possible, but at the same time not hold him up. And so, like I said, the Cub car, I think with its lack of downforce over the GT3 cars, it's just, that thing buggers off real fast in a straight line. So I think the GT3s need a little bit of help getting by us on a straight. So once we were getting close to sunset, I moved over and gave him a little bit of a lift so he wouldn't have to go too wide through there, because they're definitely quicker in the corners.
So I was asking, we were talking to the GT4 class earlier, and wanted to ask you the same thing. Are you guys doing live spotting, or are you using software, or a combination of the two?
A little bit of combination of the two. So we use software probably for the immediate vicinity of cars. So if, like right now, when a car is on our inside like it is right now, we let our virtual spotter do that. But what the non-driver is doing for the driver is giving them updates on the distance, the gap to the GT3 cars when they're coming up on us, the distance to P2 behind in this case, just kind of the macro information, and then let the virtual spotter handle all the micro stuff.
That's a really good way to do it, and that's what I've done quite often. So how good are you feeling about this minute 8-second lead you've got over Gabriel Albano right now?
Feeling pretty good right now. Jim's going to finish up this stint. I think he's probably got about another 12 minutes or so, and then I will hop back in and finish her out. Yeah, we've had pace in the car all day, and it's been a pleasure to drive. It's really hooked up right now. Hopefully it stays that way as the sun starts to set, and the track hopefully comes even more to the car, but couldn't be any happier with the way the car is driving right now and where we're positioned. So excited for the last hour to come.
Well, it's 5:30 in simulator time, so things are starting to cool off for sure. What about that 20 seconds in front of you to Avi Barua in that GT3? You going to make that up? You going to give Avi a run for his money?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to try, so we'll see how it goes.
I've raced with you, and I know that is true. You will give it a try every single time. Thanks for being with us in the booth today. Really appreciate the insight, learning a little bit about the way you guys operate. It's always a blast to see how the different teams try to do things. And thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Rachel.
Well, that was Chris Pies, of course, from Imperial Motorsport Shake, teammate of James Huth, who's on track right now. You see him on the camera coming across the line here. We are at 1 hour and 10 minutes remaining. This has flown by, Michael, I gotta say.
It's the excellent company. I gotta say, it's the excellent company.
Good
yeah,
answer.
normally working with that Joe guy, and DJ. they're excellent company as well. I'm just kidding. But yeah, actually, when you have
they're coming back in a bit.
That's right. They're going to take over from us, and if I'm off eating dinner, I won't hear what terrible things they say about us.
Okay, so let's look at our positions on track right now and who we have where. So at our lead end of the racetrack, we have Exchange Motorsports, Matrix Green, and E2 Junior Motorsports there, or JR Motorsports. In the top 3 for your GT3 cars, the top 3 in your Cup cars there. Imperial Motorsports Shake, Albano Competizione, and we have Celtic Racing. In your GT4 class, Star Racing, 208 Racing Green Team, and Dreadnought Racing. Those top 3s there. We've got 3 Stooges there on screen. P4 currently in your the Cup class, I should say, the second class there. So with 2 of them having GT in the name, I keep wanting to say the third has GT in its name. Michael, am I the only one that gets a little bit confused on that one?
No, I think that's pretty common. But we were looking at the Three Stooges, Chris Pippen, trying to close down on Dreadnought Racing, Bob Moore. They are actually the tightest race on track right now, about a second off, and I think a little bit of traffic issues going on. But Chris Pippen now has a really nice draft to get down the straightaway here and try to not get too messed up with the traffic, and that would be who we were just talking to, the guys from Imperial Motorsports Shake. So that was James Hughes going around him. That can actually help out a little bit if you are in that trailing car, because when that faster traffic comes through, Bob Moore, he can't run into them, but he has to make space, make availability for those cars to come through and be clear about his intentions. And right now, if you look, it's closed back up. It was out to just over a second, and it was at 4/10 before that. Well, we're right at 4/10, 3/10 even right now as he comes up. Ooh, nice move under braking, getting tight up in there.
Yeah, doing exactly what he needs to do. Chris Pippen right there, right behind his competition. This race is definitely tightened up. This is what we talk about with the kind of the ebb and flow of the race. You'll get this big tight fight towards the start. It'll spread out, and then it'll start to come back together again, and it'll spread out right before it starts to come to the massive climax as the wave breaks across the shore at the finale of this race. And we're seeing the Shake guys get through and get away, but this is especially, Chris Pippen looking backwards. Three Stooges are P3 right now, or nearly are technically classed as P3, but they're side by side here, running down towards the hairpin.
Yeah, big drag race trying to come down, and side-to-side contact as they go through the hotel hairpin, getting on the throttle, coming. Or wait, was that the hotel hairpin, or was that?
No, that was Fangio. He just got through there.
He just went through Fangio. Okay, cool. Coming up to Tower, looks like he's really opening up that lead. We've got an interesting little 3-car battle going on there. GT3 car stuck in the middle of them. Doesn't want to make too much of it, but it looks like Chris Pippen just decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and pull away here, and that'll be the end of that. So nice job with Bob Moore from Dreadnought, doing a good job holding on, but I think Chris Pippen had decided he'd had enough of that.
Absolutely, and I'm not going to name names for this, but I just want to talk about how sporting this series is with the PCA and how these guys are all out for a good driving experience. There was about to be a penalty meted down from race control for blocking. And it turns out that whilst that was occurring, both teams actually spoke to each other, apologized to each other, and it was miscommunication. And they put it all to bed. So the hatchets are away, the teams are happy with each other, and they were sporting about it, which I think to me is one of the most important parts of endurance racing, is that sporting atmosphere that, hey, well, our bad, sorry guys. It makes the race more enjoyable than everyone being at each other's throats, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. Now, we look great now. So at this juncture, what we're watching, this is JRT closing up a nice little bit on Wookiee Racing. Now, remember earlier, Wookiee Racing was having a different kind of idea of how they wanted to run this race, and it's working out pretty well for them so far. But JRT, I think they're ready to get on past. We've had everybody up closer to the pointy end of the lineup, and trying to get back to the front. We're starting to get to that point near the last section. There's an hour 5 left in this race, so we're going to see an hour and 5 minutes of really turning up the wick. Everybody is going to get their hot shoe back in the car or into the car, as it were, if they're not already in it. And it's time to make the mad dash to the end of the race.
So here's we've got the 003 on pit road from Exchange Motorsports. Matrix Green there on screen for you now. They are current race leader now, Exchange down pit road. What are we seeing from them? Joe Stiffel is in the car. Not sure if we're seeing them go up on the jacks here.
Yeah, taking a look, trying to see if he's going up on the jacks, but I don't think so. This is not really the point to take tires if you took them before. You're going to want to double stint these if you can.
E2 Junior are in as well from your GT3 class. Seems to be our GT3 pit window has opened wide. He was on the jacks, he just dropped off them. That was a tire stop.
Yeah, probably the smart move here because you want fresh tires for the end of the race. You really want to be on the best tires you can get. If you're on 2-hour-old tires at the end of the race, you're going to drive like you're on 2-hour-old tires. And like we were discussing earlier, this track is quite abrasive with all those different track surfaces and going from one to the other. It's going to really be interesting to manage a really worn out tire. It's like F1 when they say, "Oh, my tires are graining." Yeah, same thing kind of happens here. You can't see the grain, but it's the same kind of feel. You just lose a lot of ability to let that tire do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely do, of course. And looking at some of these guys coming out now on track, trying to get themselves reacquainted with the racing surface here. A couple of our leaders pitting back out again. And we're going to see what this does for JRT Racing, of course, because they're one to keep an eye on. Those guys are fast. And they've also made a different strategy call, so I'll be very interested to see how that does play forwards for us. Matrix, of course, back on the racetrack here with these guys and pushing forwards, but we're coming up to this hour point remaining in the race, and this is where the tempo will start to wind up.
Yeah, now that everybody's gotten that last bit of fuel, and honestly, there may be a splash and dash here. It's hard to say how long these cars will run. It really comes down to how much time do you have in draft. Are you doing any lift and coast? Are you running a different fuel map? Can they make it to the end? And they really need to turn the wick up right now. And I think our leader is actually in the pit. That's going to be Matrix Green as our current leader. They are currently pulling out of pit lane. Are they going to hold on to the lead as Wookiee Racing is racing down pit lane? You can see them just ahead in the picture there as we come through the corner, going to come up right on his tail. This is what we were talking about earlier. You have to play nicely, but if they took some tires, they may be having some trouble getting some heat into them. So Wookiee Racing, I have to say that correct. I also always want to say racing. So Wookiee Racing, it's it's their time to shine and get right up under the tail of that car as we get a little bit of defensive driving coming down the straightaway here. Looking back to the outside, Wookiee Racing wants to get around. Oh, it's going to be Wascally Wookiees right here.
So when do we think that Wookiee Racing will be washing down Pit Woe?
I wish I had an answer for you, but I'm laughing too hard because that was a good one. I got to give you props on that one. I lost it. That was great.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I expect them. Honestly, if I were a betting man, I would say about 30 minutes in, they're going to try to do what they can to pull out a good lead. And about 30 minutes in, they're going to do a splash and dash to the end, maybe 20 minutes to the end. I don't think anybody can make it all the way through from here. So 20 to 30 minutes would be my guess with the way they've been running their fuel strategy.
Looking good so far. Travis Brody there from JRT. They're cycling forwards here, so we definitely saw an off strategy for these guys. This will be one of the stories going forwards, I think, and I'm sure we'll hear more from Joe and DJ in a few minutes about how it's going to play out for that. But watching JRT's call will be interesting. That was a wide run there. What was he up to? Did he get loose, do you think, Michael?
Yeah, at this point in the race, if we're looking at what's going on, I'm going to say it's easy to fall out of your timing. You kind of lose it a little bit, and then something like that happens. As long as you don't hit a wall, it snaps you back into it, and then it's eyes front, nose to the grindstone. Let's make this happen. Let's run to the end.
Sounds like a plan. Well, as things are running along here, we are going to head ourselves to a midway break. Now, another hour on the clock. It's time to bring you the Porsche Exchange race update. The Porsche Exchange has been family owned and operated for over 40 years. Located in North Shore of Chicago, the Porsche Exchange has grown to be the largest volume Porsche dealer in the entire Midwest. Find out more at 4Porsche.com. That is 4Porsche.com, or follow them at Porsche Exchange on Instagram. So let's take a look at our field rundown. It's going to be Wookie Racing leading the way. That didn't work because it already was a W. Chris Braun behind the wheel of that car there in the 258, leading us through the field here, with JRT Racing coming up in second place just behind them. Travis Brody behind the wheel of that car. Matthew Siddle in the 55 behind them from Matrix Green, with Exchange Motorsports behind them. Joe Stiffel behind the wheel of that car, P4 overall right now. And as we drop back behind the 03 is Ian Simon for E2 JR Motorsports in the 1 machine, hoping to try and pull something out of this. They've been running very well tonight. 6th place will be Terrence Tong there. We've got him on screen for a Black Flagmeister. Hopefully none of those for them tonight in the 96 machine. And in 7th place, Marble Motors is coming up there. Greg Fullwood behind the wheel of the 996 car, blasting across the start-finish line. And its 8th place is going to be Matrix Purple. Those guys back there, we have them on your screen now. Stephen Kemp in the 29 machine, with Flying Lion Racing in 9th, with Avjit Brewer behind the wheel, Michael.
Let's take a look at the open class. This is James Huth with Imperial Motorsports Shake, doing a nice job today. Really consistent behind the wheel alongside Chris Pites. They have about a minute 15 over Albano Competizione, with Gabriel Albano behind the wheel right now. Just trying to hold on to that second place, looking like it should go okay. Behind him, looks like about 14 seconds back is going to be Celtic Racing with David Palmer, bringing that nicely liveried machine through the hotel hairpin there. Behind him is going to be Black Flagmeister Neue with Patrick Adamczyk, trying to close up here, actually a lap down at the moment, and behind that is going to be Spanners Motorsport. Currently hopping in the car is Donald Binkley. So they are doing a pit stop right at this moment. And then, of course, the one of the booth favorites, a lot of discussion about what the Doritos should be. We have Lynn Wilson driving Team Doritos. If you have an idea what you would like the Doritos flavor to be, please let us know on social media. There is still a little bit of a discussion going on there. We have not yet come to a conclusion which flavor Doritos those should be. Rachel, I think you've got the last class.
I do indeed. Leading our GT4s, it is Star Racing there, with Shabal Bandiapadi leading the way. I apologize if I ruined your name there. The 24 car has been flying with this one, leading by a good margin in the GT4. Second place, 208 Racing Green Team with Joseph Evers there in the 208 car. Very well named, actually. It matches the team number. Funny that. Behind them, Dreadnought Racing is Bob Moore in the 8 car. Let's hope it's not a World War I era Dreadnought battleship. Those things are rather slow. But Dreadnought going very quickly today. 4th place, Backmarker Motorsports. Mike Sachs on pit road currently for them. That 27 machine getting its service. Chris Pippin from Three Stooges is in 5th. That 42 machine. Max Schnell at Motorsports is in the 718, their 6th place. We spoke to them a moment ago. That's the 718, as actually I've already mentioned 718. Michael Burgoyne in the 14 car. Las Muchachos Motorsports currently running down there. They've been trying to claw this one forwards all day long, still where they started really. And Alcuro Racing behind them, with Arne Klassen behind the wheel of that car. The 242 is in 8th place. Behind them, ahoy! It's Anchors Away with Ankerberg Son as the 104 car running down in the 9th spot. Oh yeah, Anchors Away. I get it now. 10th place is Chris Ramirez, Team Chillax Racing in the 510. They have been chillaxing a little bit. They're still running towards the rear of your GT4 field. And last but not least, it is Team 1 with Horace Knight still plugging away there in 11th place and last in class.
We've still
with
got
that-
quite the battle going on up front, though. We still have Wookiee Racing and JRT Racing with Travis Brody in the car, Chris Brown in the Wookiee Racing car. They're still under a second. This is the tightest race on the course right now. These guys are just trying to hold it out to the end. It looks like, a little bit sideways. That could be dealing with a little bit of traffic, trying to set up the pass. Going down the Ullman Straight, both cars look like they're going to get around. Now it's time to get through turn 17 and one of those 17 paths through there.
They certainly are. And, two people who've been absolutely chewing at the booth door to talk about Wookiee Racing and JRT. It is going to be DJ Clark and Joe Peak. We're bringing them back to the booth, guys. Have you missed us?
Oh, ever so much. I'm sure you didn't say a single poor word about DJ and I during the time you're gone.
Never.
Yeah.
Didn't talk smack at all, not even a tiny little bit.
No, we love you. Anyway, we're going to hand over to those guys. They're going to take you through to the finish of the race tonight. It has been wonderful being with you here for the middle part of the race, and we'll conclude what has been the driving science class that we had for this middle hour, and we'll pass back to those guys. So, Joe, DJ, take it away.
Thank you very much. And as you can see, we're going to take you to the final hour, down to the checkered flag here. And that battle for the lead has, evaporated because Wookiee Racing just put it in as we were talking. So the 258 team taking what they expect to be their last stop. What will that do for everybody else out there? Since they seem to be the only one that is trying to make that two-stop strategy here in the GT3s, DJ. And from here, they really have to hope that this works out, because now this puts them, about a minute and a half behind everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's about right, Joe. They're going to come out here in 5th place. They'll be ahead of Black Flagmeister, it looks like, as they come out of pit lane. I'm waiting for my timing to update. It's going to be about a minute 5 seconds between themselves and JRT Racing.
And now just coming into its balance there as they get up to speed. And Chris Braun has given over to Liam Routsidas, who takes over from Nicky Chan and Chris as well, and is going to play the anchor for today's race. Let's see if he's got enough pace and I would hope enough fuel to make it to the end. I guess that's the nice thing about the way that they have played it here, DJ, is that this is going to be their shortest stint. So Liam is the one that gets to unleash the car a little bit more than the other two.
Yeah, he is now going to be in full push mode. We know that the car can easily do about 52 minutes on a tank of fuel. He's not going to have to do any fuel saving. He's not going to have to do any lifting and coasting. He can go all out from this moment, and that's what he's got to do. We need to keep an eye on those lap times, because that is going to be the real indicator of where that car is going to end up.
Almost have the reverse problem for Star Racing there in the 24. Shabal Banjapaje last time out pulled out a massive gap in those GT4s, just as we saw this time out at Sebring. But back at Road America, eventually the co-drivers of Shabal didn't keep up the same pace, and it came down to them losing out. So Randy Teague is in. We haven't seen a full completed lap yet for him, DJ. So I'm curious if Randy's found a little bit of pace since then, and he'll be able to hold off David Kaufman, or is this going to be a repeat of last time, where slowly but surely the rest of the field just claws their way back to them?
Well, normally I would say that there could be a little bit of that pulling in right now, but with the gap as large as it is at a minute and 25 seconds, I think with 50 minutes left to go in this race, that is going to be a almost insurmountable gap to be able to come back over. So I think Star Racing should be in good contention here, but if you are a betting man, knock on all of the wood that you have.
Absolutely. And you can't give it up before it's over. So Randy's got to keep the pace up. He's got to push and see if he can do what Shabal did. We'll check in on that pace as this carries on. In the meantime, we're looking at Chris Pippen. This is in second in that class, down the GT4s. And a very close fight, and that is the good news for Randy, is that even if he is losing a little bit of pace, if we get a battle here between the 42 and the 208, that will slow down each of them, and that will be the best friend of that Star team.
Yes, it will. Just hoping that traffic will be able to come back in and play it out. But I think Star here can afford to back off just a little bit. If that gap comes under a second or so, we may see a little bit of resolve, a little bit of push, but then it will be able to resolve itself. I think they should be able to keep that gap okay.
So Randy's last lap time was a 2:15, and I didn't see anything dramatic in there. Now, the bad news is the laps for Cheval were between 2:10 and 2:12. So that is a pretty big difference there between them. But like you said, it'll depend on how it flows over the course of the race. And they do have 50 minutes left to go on the clock here as Chris Pippin takes it through Sunset Bend. You can see it is now matching its name with the sun continuing to set. And will that also affect the pace of certain drivers? How did they set up their cars? Were they supposed to be good during the majority of the race during the day, or did they want a flyer at night that just grips up and shoots off like a rocket ship when they can finally attack and go for the actual win? And again, there are no cautions to bring them together, so it really is a question of which is the better way to play this, as he's going to be lapped now by Liam Routsidas in Wookiee Racing. Let's see what kind of pace Liam has now that he's been out on track and compare that to guys like Brody.
Well, I was taking a look at that last lap, and granted, it was the lap after an out lap, so he may be getting back into a little bit of rhythm, but he was about 0.8 of a second slower than Travis Brody. Now, there could have been some lap traffic that played into that. There could be some extenuating circumstances, but those are not the kind of times that Wookiee Racing wants to see here as compared to JRT.
Certainly not. And of course, that's assuming that JRT is going to be the one that they're fighting with, because it could be some of these other drivers that wind up finding themselves on the optimal strategy. Oh, and Matrix Green is doing their third stop now. So they are trying to do a short stint here, covering it off and making sure the car can go to the finish. This is interesting.
Yes, it is very, very interesting from them to be able to do this, and this is going to be another good indicator for us to see where they come out in regards to Wookiee Racing. If Wookiee is able to be up by them by a significant margin, that's going to put a lot of pressure on JRT. If Matrix is able to get them ahead, then JRT is going to know that they're going to have some time to chill.
And these should be shorter stops, we should mention. And that plays a part in this as well. Routsidas is currently heading towards Sunset Bend, while Sidal still in his stall, and now he's rolling, so he is going to be ahead of that 258 car. That is not good news for Routsidas. He is going to be able to come down the front stretch. We're on board with him right now. And Sidal just exited in front of him, so way off in the distance. It looks like about a 7-second difference between themselves and Wookiee Racing.
Well, that's going to be a huge sigh of relief for JRT, but Exchange Motorsports and E2 Junior Motorsports, both of them, we anticipate will have to make another stop, and I think that'll put them right into a very, very tight battle with Wookiee Racing. So they could be on for a podium, which I would still take after a certainly suboptimal qualifying performance from them.
Indeed. And Brody is on lap 19 of the stints, the longest of anybody that's out there right now. So they're not the ones on the unusual strategy that we've seen on the 3-stopper. But Stifle behind them, 8 laps into their stint in Exchange Motorsports, are 22 seconds behind, which, let's see, how long was that last stop for Matrix Green? That was about 25 seconds in the stall, 49 to cone. So we're looking at probably just about a minute loss, I think, there, somewhere around there.
Yeah, there or thereabouts as they continue to go along here. So we'll have to see what they do in terms of all of that.
I know we're talking a lot about strategy here, but that's going to be the thing that we do have to watch out for. We do have a bit of a battle forming in the GT4s. 208 and Dreadnought still close together like we had covered when Michael and Rachel were in here. This is for the 3rd position, so this is a fight for the podium amongst these two. And they've each taken 2 of their stops so far. So they might actually be done at this point to make it to the end of this race. And so far, it's about half a second between the pair of them. So still a bit of a chess match. Still needs to get the pace to directly get up on that bumper. But as soon as he does, then the battle is going to be on.
Yeah, indeed, as we ride on board with that Dreadnought Racing machine, trying to close in on the 208 Racing Green team, looking at their last laps. Dreadnought just on an absolute tear there. Matrix Green has just had a little bit of a spin.
Uh-oh. And Wookiee Racing is right with them because of that, and they make another little off. Matthew Siddall seems to be somewhat off of his game, and he is slow as Rudzitas has the momentum, but not the inside line as they head for the braking down into Hotel Hairpin. He's not completely passed. Can he finally get this one done? He does, the long way around to the hairpin.
Nice moves there by Liam Rudzitas in that Wookiee Racing machine. Absolutely fantastic to be able to get himself up there, taking advantage of that off coming out of turn 2 for Matrix Green.
So looking slightly better now for the 258 car, as they know that mistakes on the others' parts could give them those positions. They're not out of it yet, as I believe we've got one of our drivers in the leading teams, the 77 of Imperial Motorsports Shake, as we were talking to Pies before. It looks like now we have James Huth with us. James, excellent stint out there in the middle. You've handed back over to Chris Pies. It's a 1 minute 30 gap to the nearest car. How confident are you feeling?
We might have this. Might just have this one. I say, all kidding aside, man, I'm so happy with these guys out here. It's just wonderful to see everybody racing head-to-head. And, the open class is great because you can take a challenge guy and a pro guy and put them in together. And what a learning experience, and how much fun is that? That's great.
Well, I know I personally have been bitten by the bug in the past 10 years by endurance racing. I love when I get the chance to participate. And when someone hears you guys just did a 24-hour race with one team, now you come to do a 3-hour race, I got to be thinking, you're nuts. But I get it completely from where you're coming from. I explain to the audience what drives someone to want to do this marathon of 2 back-to-back endurance races.
You have to be very close to divorce, and you have to, I'm absolutely kidding. My wife loves the fact that I can stay busy for this long and not interrupt her workflow. But you just really have to enjoy the camaraderie of having a team. And we really work together. We talk about who's chewing up tires faster, what cars are coming up behind you, how much time you have, should we double stint tires. All of these things you work together as a group, and it's so much fun. And I mean, we only earned like 5 or 6 iRacing points tonight, but we were second split with the Cup car at the Nürburgring 24-hour. I mean, absolutely wonderful, grueling, fun race. And yeah, now we're here at the PCA one because we missed these people. Not all of our friends here in the PCA were at that race, so we'll come race with them here. It's another good group of people. It makes us a little nuts, but you got to have a passion for it.
Well, James, DJ here, just wanted to ask you guys, I mean, with having this commanding of a lead here tonight, does it change your driving style at all, or are you guys still going for it? How does it change your mentality? How does it change your inputs on the car?
Once you've built up a lead that you know you are going to be able to maintain, what it does is it forces you to be that much more kind and gentle to the cars around you. If somebody's having a good fight, you may stay behind them for another 2 or 3 corners before you have a good straightaway to take them. The closing speed on the GT3s on these straights is not very great at all. So you have to lift, and you have to lift fairly early and lose the second. But because we have that buffer around us, we're more than happy to go ahead and let those other guys continue on. We'll let them pass us at the best spot for them. For us, it doesn't mean anything in time. We're already carrying enough of the buffer.
Well, it's been fun to watch you guys basically just dominate the field here and show what can be done in this open class. Will we be seeing the Imperial Motorsports team back at Watkins Glen for the 6 hours?
Oh, I'm sure. if I don't make it, Leap and Chris will be here. There's 5 or 6 of us in Imperial Motorsports, and we switch back and forth, but we will definitely be making as many of a showing as we can. We really love supporting them.
Well, we'll wish your team the best, and definitely head back down and see what you can do to help behind the scenes, and let them know that we look forward to hopefully getting to chat after the race.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Porsche Exchange. This is an awesome, wonderful thing to put on broadcast. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you soon.
That was James Huth, who is the teammate to Chris Pies, leading the open class in the 77 car. Now, you may have noticed as the sun continues to go down, it's been getting darker naturally. The temperatures have been going down. We reported during the height of the day, 106 Fahrenheit on the track. DJ, usually we don't see these sorts of swings in most races we cover since they're so short. 77 Fahrenheit now on the track. So you really need a car that can do a wide variety.
Yeah, you really do, and this is where that setup change comes into play, as you've got to really be careful about it to be able to make sure that it works across that wide spectrum of heat. Remember, we were up at 107, 108 degrees Fahrenheit. The track is so slippery there with it being so hot that you get into that sort of Goldilocks zone right around the 80s or 90s. And now as you start to dip down into the cooler temperatures, everything starts to cool down and the grip starts to go away. You've got to worry about getting your tires up to temperature. And so having a setup that works across that wide spectrum is very tricky and very important.
So we watch the onboard just to show you what's happening here, as there is a big moment coming through Sunset Bend with Travis Brody, our leader in the GT3s. Not what you want at that time. Now, the good news for GRT is that Brody's running pretty good lap times. 2 flats, 159s occasionally, whereas Routsitas, who that are on the alternate strategy and chasing them, have been running 201s and a high 2 flats. So they're running slower than JRT in Wookiee Racing and will not catch at that rate. But we still need a pit stop from the 84 to determine who will come out ahead on this one. The good news is you can see the sun's much lower than it was before. We did see a few onboard shots where it was absolutely in the eyes of the drivers, and we saw that during F1 qualifying yesterday. That can be a problem in the real world, and I love that iRacing's kind of mimicked that here in the sim as well.
Yeah, me too, Joe. It really adds to just the total level of immersion. And whether you're driving on a monitor or a single monitor or a triple monitor setup or in VR, when that sun hits at the right angle, it really can blind you. And iRacing is so accurate in the way that they depict things. You can also get a little bit of blindness actually off of like a chrome car, or if something like that hits your eyes. So it's really impressive. Obviously now not having to worry about it as much, but this is the time where you're going to start to have to worry about those headlights coming into play. This is where you need to know the track inside and out, is you're going to have reduced feedback on the visual senses around you. You're not going to be able to use some of the same braking markers. You've got to use stuff that's a lot closer to the track.
Brody is not sitting around. That was another big correction through Jean Evian. Just took a lot of curb and had to correct it as they come down into Sunset Bend. Let's see if this one's any better into there. Certainly brings it right up to that inside wall on the entry and likes it through the middle of the apex as well. That looked slightly smoother to me, and off to complete another lap. So no wonder the times are looking good. He's still hustling that purple and white 84 machine, and it remains at a 20+ second gap down to Exchange Motorsports, and it's almost up to 30 seconds now to that 003 in second place. Also want to give an update on the lead in the GT4s while we have the opportunity, because we were wondering about Randy Teague running those slower times. It's settled into a rhythm of about 2:15s for much of the laps. And the good news is that it's been a lot of 2:12s, 2:13s for Chris Pippin, who is in second place in that class. Now, Chris did just run a 2:11 this last time by, which is a little bit faster, quite a bit faster, frankly. And that's bad news for Randy, as doesn't want to see him pick up the pace. But if it's down to 2:13s, then that's going to be a lot harder for the Three Stooges car to catch up to Star Racing. And there you see, as the sun continues to set, the lights are now on around the track, and we are getting into nighttime. They still have a half an hour to go to deal with the pitch blackness.
Yeah, indeed they do, as we watch that GT4 work its way around the track right now, just slowly but surely doing it. And this is where one of the frankly unique things that comes up in this series alone is going to be a problem. Normally when you're running a multi-class race that is going into the night like this, you're going to have different types of cars behind you, whether that is an LMP2, whether that is in one of the old HPDs, maybe an LMP1, different manufacturers of GT3s, anything like that. Well, we've got all Porsches out here, and Porsche designs their headlights the same, so it's very difficult to tell what car is coming up behind you visually as it moves its way down the track. And that's why you heard earlier when Rachel and Michael were talking to Chris Pies about the spotter packs and things like that. That's where you got to rely on your spotters, whether digital or real life, to be able to make sure that you know exactly what class of car is coming up behind you.
Absolutely, yeah. And definitely having that F3 information box open will be a big help in multi-class racing, no doubt. We're watching Kaufman here, who is trying to keep up with Dreadnought. We missed it. They did make the pass the 18 and get into third. The 208 have not given up on it. They're still right there, and this is our closest battle on the track currently. Now, I'm curious to see when we are going to see some of those pit stop, those strategy battles start to finally send drivers into pit lane. We saw at least one of them pit early in the form of Matrix Green to try and get themselves on a different strategy than most of those around them. See if that gave them an advantage. Unfortunately, they had a mistake, and that cost them a spot to Wookiee Racing in the process. But we still need JRT, Exchange Motorsports, and E2JR Motorsports to owe us a pit stop here, especially JRT, who is now on lap 26 of their stint. And at 2 minutes a lap, that to me says they are getting close to the bottom of that fuel tank.
Yeah, Joe, and you know, their first stint, they were able to stretch that out to 28 laps, but we'll have to see what they do. They obviously short-filled in that middle stint, only going 17 there, and so there you can see with them, it could be a little bit of decision time here as they murk their way down the Ullman Straight. We'll have to stay on board with them here to see if they decide to dive down pit lane or if they've got one more left in that tank.
Here it is. If they stay tucked to the right-hand side, they're going to be pitting in. No, they are going to continue on. They have about a minute 11 over Rootsitas in the 258 machine. That is the main one that they need to be worried about here, although it is possible Exchange and E2JR could wind up being a threat as well, as they are still ahead of Wookiee. But they are much closer to that 258 team, likely to be overtaken when they have to come in for pit stops as well. And it is now into pitch blackness. This is an interesting track compared to some others, especially in American endurance racing, DJ. You can see there's a couple lights around in a few places, but look at that. Nothing along the side of the track here coming down into the hairpin. It is basically you and your headlights for a good portion of your way around.
Yeah, indeed, Joe, and it's frankly at the most difficult portions of the track is where there is no ambient lighting. Even places like Road Atlanta has some of that ambient lighting. Obviously, Daytona pretty much fully lit around here. It's very, very difficult around Sebring. It's one of the challenges that really presents itself is when you are running in the dark, you are running in the absolute dark around here, and these drivers now really having to use their muscle memory, use that what they've practiced in for many a time to be able to hit those braking markers. I talked about that loss of visual reference to be able to come on, as they've got to watch out for it here.
Absolutely. And we've got a couple of the drivers waiting for us, ready to talk to us. I know Dewey Kang is in there, and I'm pretty sure he's one of our major players, as Stifle is out there, so we won't be able to talk to him. And I'm trying to, yeah, it was with the 003 team, so there's the teammates there. So let's talk to Dewey Kang a little bit, now that he's hopped out of the car after taking the brunt of the racing with the first two stints, and we've got Dewey with us. You're in second place, but on strategy, by our estimations, I don't know if you have something different here, Dewey, that it looks like you're going to get jumped by Wookiee Racing in the end. So ultimately, what's the goal? Do you think the win is still on, or is this a best of the rest situation?
That's a tough call. I think we're all on varying strategies, so I don't know. We're waiting to see, and we're really just focusing on race pace. And Joe Stiffel in the car right now, who's in the rating room, actually, he's actually doing a great job running consistent laps and great fuel consumption, and we're on track right now, so we'll see.
So what motivated you guys to have you do those first two stints and then plop Joe in the car? And what made you decide to do the tires on that second one as well? We saw variations from everybody in terms on who took tires when.
Right. We actually, so Ed Nelson is our resident engineer who goes through all the strategy with us, and we were discussing basically 5 minutes to the race, and that was just our call. I'm generally more comfortable with Sebring, and I've done endurance races and whatnot, so I'm easier on the tires and easier on the fuel, so that was largely part of it.
Well, we'll have to have a chat with him then. We could bring him in here if we wanted. Now we've got Ed Nelson with us. Hopefully, we're not taking too many strategists and help behind the scenes that Joe needs. So, welcome to the booth, Ed. It sounds like you guys have quite a solid footing out there for an endurance team. Just shows you how seriously everybody takes this, even though it is for fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're all competitive. Even when you're out there just having fun. It's great to have this series, sponsored by Porsche Exchange and you guys broadcasting and the PCA putting this on. It's a lot of fun, but you still want to go out there and try to win.
Well, so talk to us then, because we kind of asked a similar thing of Dewey here. Are there any curveballs? Are there anything that up your sleeve that you can do from here to give yourself an edge? We understand everybody's kind of on a little bit of a different strategy, but you don't have to get into the weeds. Is there anything that you could do? As now Travis is actually in the pits themselves.
Yeah, we're a lot of us are all friends outside of PCA, and we kind of talk amongst ourselves and say, "Oh, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And we went in with a different strategy than Jacob and Travis and those guys to see if we could beat them. Overall, you have somebody like Raphael and Travis and Jacob. They're just ridiculously fast. So you have to come up with something to beat them. So we're trying a different little strategy here and see if it works.
And they're just back out now. So you are now effectively the lead team. And good news for, I guess, Travis's team is they're well ahead of the Wookiee Racing after that pit stop. So that doesn't bode well for the 258 drivers as we come down actually side by side into the hairpin with drivers having to deal with that here in the dark. What's on store for the rest of the season? Is this something where you guys want to fight for the championship overall, or are you taking this just a race at a time just for the heck of it?
No, we're going to fight for the championship. We'll be trying to get back after Road America. Little snafu I had, qualifying great. Then I had a self spin coming out of Canada, so I put us kind of behind the curveball there. So hopefully with Joe and Dewey, we could get back in the championship fight after this race.
Hey guys, DJ here. Just wanted to ask you really quick about the track itself. We've been talking a lot about the track evolution and how, it's obviously gotten so much chillier out there now, but I'm curious with the amount of rubber laid down, if there has been a lot of change in the grip levels and things like that from when you guys were in the car, or how everything else is feeling now.
Yeah, there's definitely a change.
Go on, Nick.
No, I was gonna say there's definitely gonna be a change through that car. I would say Dewey's ran the most laps. So, Dewey, what do you think?
So basically, yes, definitely lots of track evolution with Sebring. There's a lot of temperature differences, and that all relates to the tire degradations and the lap times. Fortunately, Ed, gave us a quick last-minute tweak to the setup, as he always does, kind of observing the temperature, and we made a slight tweak that I think just really revolutionized the endurance pace on our car. So we're really happy about the pace. It's the control of the car. The car's been very consistent all throughout my double stint. And Joe feels very comfortable in the car as well.
Well, guys, one last question before we let you go. You're on lap 19 of the stint. We assume you have one more stop, but sometimes you can't assume things. Do you have enough fuel potentially to the end? Because I'm thinking, what, about 8 more laps before you're out?
Will be a close one. I think we'll we'll kind of leave that out as a mystery here.
All right.
And Joe Stifel wants to come into the booth if you guys are available.
So we will get to talk to Joe live out on track. Joe, welcome to the booth. I'll try not to distract you as best I can. You're leading, and you've got about 10 seconds. What's the emotions in the car right now?
It is dark. We feel good. We've, I'm really leaning on the expertise that was Dewey Kang in the first half of the race. Dewey Kang is like what Boris said in a NASCAR road course, so he is the man at Sebring and really helped us do what we need to do. But I tell you what, it is dark, and that has made turn 1 incredibly difficult, because off to my left IRL side is a big bright window.
Ooh, yeah, that would make things extremely difficult. You've got 23 more minutes. Best of luck on that. Any predictions on where you think the team will wind up?
Well, Dewey Kang is working all kinds of great stuff. Ed Nelson is also in our chat. He's always good with the race strategy, and I know Jacob Shum has put in some really good strategy time, so we're always up against those guys. And Travis, of course, as you know, is an incredibly good driver. So I'm leaning on these guys. These guys are great. We appreciate the broadcast. So the Exchange Motorsports GT3R is doing all it can to stay out front.
Best of luck, sir. That was Joe Stifel, and also we were joined by Dewey Kang and Ed Nelson, all 3 of the Exchange Motorsports team. As we'll let them carry on now. It's down to 7.3 to Travis Brody. He's coming. He is trying to reel them in after that pit stop, and he is in second place, so he's in a great position to try to take this win with only 22 minutes left to go. I started, I don't like usually putting them on the spot, but I started looking at the laps left each, and I was going, wait a minute, this is going to be pretty tight on that 003.
I was doing the exact same math as you were talking about strategy, Joe. There is a real chance that they can eke this out. Now, I will say the JRT Racing Machine, they're the only drivers that have been able to make 28 laps work, with the exception of the mega fuel saving on that Wookiee Racing first stint with a 32-lapper that Chan did. So if Dewey Kang and Joe Stifel, if they've got something in that car, it could theoretically last that long. We've seen 32 laps work. They've just got to be doing that while at the same time of keeping Travis Brody behind them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is keeping the pace up. You got to wonder if they can do that. And let me look at the lap times here. Now, they're kind of in the in-between. They're not committed either way that I can tell. Doesn't seem like they're saving huge amounts of fuel, and it doesn't seem like they're pushing super hard either. So I really can't pick up much out of that. But 21 minutes left to go. Should be about 10 laps, I think. 10 laps that they will be doing, since it's 2 minutes a lap here. So that would put them at 31 laps. Yeah, that's really on the edge there, and I don't think they'll be running a great pace if they do that. So we'll see what happens in the end as we now head to Chris Pies in the Imperial Motorsports 77. That one is a lot clearer. They are basically ready to wrap this thing up without any more pit stops to go in 1:49. They're almost a full lap ahead of Gabriel Albano and the Albano Competizione machine. And let's see, are they running quick enough they could actually lap the entire field in their class? Don't think so. Doesn't look like it.
It may be a little bit close. On the last lap, they were 5/6 tenths of a second faster, and they're both on a straight. So maybe there's the chance. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they're about 11 seconds behind them on the track right now, and they're looking. Oh, maybe it is possible. It's maybe a second and a half faster per lap. So it's close, but. Obviously, we do have one team that is looking like they are likely going to be a full lap ahead, and that is Star Racing over Three Stooges. It is improving for Randy Teague. He's now hit 2:13, his best so far, his personal best in this stint. And Chris Pippin has been doing 2:12s, 2:14s, 2:13s. So the pace is actually evening out between first and second end of the GT4s. Bad news for anybody hoping to try and catch the indomitable Star Racing team that just seems to be unbeatable when they don't have issues out on the track. So, though it is far apart in those two classes, again, stick around because things are getting interesting in the GT3s, because Stiffel has now been caught down to 3 seconds. Travis Brody is chomping away at it. I think somebody got on the radio and told him to pick it up because he just hit his personal best, actually the best lap of the race for that entire team at a 58.7.
Yeah, Joe, and only Black Flagmeister has been able to tickle down into the 158, so those are the only two cars to be able to go that low. And just for comparison, by the way, Stiffel ran a 2:01.43 last time out. That 158.77, about 2.5 seconds faster for Brody. So I think there is a lot of fuel saving going on in that Exchange Motorsports machine and a lot of attack in this JRT racing machine.
The good news for the Exchange guys is that they've got 28 seconds over E2 Junior. So that's a pretty wide margin. If they need to save a lot, they could probably do it and get away with it with a second place. It's just unfortunate that it looks like Brody is now set to run them down and easily pass them as it stands currently. And in fact, as we ride on board with Brody into Sunset Bend and through the corner, you're going to see them just up ahead. You'll see the tail lights. Yeah, just up there and crossing the start-finish line. 2.4 seconds. Stiffel, that time, a 2.4. That was a little bit faster. Maybe he's getting the hurry up as well. Brody with a 1:59.2.
All right, the race is on. It's still about a second faster there for Travis Brody, but not all that much time left to go. 17 minutes here as we ride on board. That's the 2:08 directly ahead. That is Kaufman in front of Brody. May have slowed him down there just a little bit coming through turn 2.
Yeah, the gap increased up to 2.5 seconds now. But time is on the side of the JRT racing team. And considering their pace, I think they just probably want to focus on keeping the car whole here this late in. Just about 17 minutes to go. So then they have the pace to run down the current leader, who they don't know whether or not they need to pit. So I think their assumption is just run decent pace, try and get it to the end, and things should shake out in our favor based on all of the factors that we are aware of. We watch them weave their way through the dark of the night and out of Tower Corner now. Not many other battles out on the track. In fact, you mentioned Kaufman in that 208 team. They were right behind Dreadnought for so long. Something must have happened, or they had an error, or traffic just hasn't gone their way, because it's a full 5 seconds now between P3 and P4.
Yeah, I think it's just been a little bit of all of the three, just a couple of wobbly laps there for 208, compounded by the fact of some traffic just not catching their way. Dreadnought really starting to pull a good gap there. Looks like they will be able to hold on to that third place position, barring anything happening, because they've got about a 31-second gap up the road to Three Stooges Racing, so I don't anticipate that coming down before the end of the race.
Watching those lap times again, Stiffel with a 2:01.3. Brody a 2:01.2. Interesting. They're starting to converge. Travis might not have. Well, we did see him get caught up, I guess, coming into Big Bend. So that might explain the loss of pace there for the 84 machine. There you see him on screen with the 02 on his banner. If you're ever curious and losing track of what you're looking at, because obviously you can't really see the cars very well in the darkness, we have those beautifully illuminated numbers on the windscreens, and that will tell you who is in what position, at least in these cars. It's one thing that I do love that has been added to sports car racing over the past, about 15 years, I'd say, has become very, very common practice, having lit up numbers and banners to help fans and viewers be able to tell what's happening out on track.
Yeah, indeed. It really, really helps. And Joe, I can tell you as somebody who has been to this race in person, when you're watching them in the nighttime, it can be a little bit difficult to see. We talked about the reduced lighting around there. It is just very, very helpful. And they don't have them on these Porsches, but on some of the other machines on the service, you'll also see the lit up 1, 2, or 3 dots on the side in color, depending on their class. Very, very helpful as well.
Lots of innovations, or perhaps maybe one of the last places where racing is constantly seeing the trickle down effect, if you will, of technology and just creativeness coming together and helping regular road cars and all sorts of things as they come up with all kinds of stuff to help efficiency, help safety, help the power of the cars, and of course make it all the more entertaining as we go around the 510. Certainly not been having the best of race here today. The 510 Team Chillax has had multiple spins. They're currently 16 laps down from the overall leader and almost a full lap away from Kessel's Anchors Away machine. But they are going to see the checkered flag come hell or high water. And actually, I do want to give credit to all the drivers and teams out here. It looks like we have all 26 still running here with 13 minutes left to go. Knock on all your favorite wood that we can get every single car to the finish line today.
Yeah, indeed, Joe, and it really goes to show you the class quality of this field. Really, really impressive. I frankly can't remember an endurance race that you and I have called where we have seen an 100% finishing order. Absolutely.
And I know they did have the spare car, but honestly, 3 hours is still a long time with 3 different classes on track to see 100% strike rate. So that deserves a pat on the back to everybody out there today and their teammates. So now coming down to 12 minutes to go. Brody has not caught Stiffel. So what is happening here? What's going on between these two? Brody made all these great inroads, and suddenly Joe is holding him at arm's length. Is this them giving up on the fuel strategy of going to the end, or what's going on?
I'm not sure. I mean, he's certainly upped his pace a little bit, but Brody's also fallen off. Brody was setting times down in the 158s, 159s, and now he's dropping down into the 2 minutes, so it could be a little bit of a mix of both, Joe.
Do you think Brody maybe short-fueled it a little too much? Did JRT get their fueling wrong, potentially? It was a 24-second stop, and I think that tracks with what they had for the previous ones as he closes in this time, and for the first time it's gotten under 2 seconds. I think traffic maybe held up the 003 this time. Still not able to attack, but he should be able to pretty soon. All he needs is a little bit more pace through a couple of these corners, and he's got an opportunity.
Indeed, it's just a matter of keeping things together for Travis Brody. He doesn't want to be too aggressive here and throw everything away at this moment, but there's the move!
He wants to be aggressive enough, and the lap traffic covering off Stiffel was all he needed. Travis Brody is now your new leader once again, as will the Exchange Motorsports car be able to make it to the end from here. 11 minutes left to go. They are now on lap 26 in that 003 car, and I would have thought they'd try their best to use the slipstream of Travis, but unfortunately that lap traffic has cost them massively.
Yeah, it really and truly has. You can see just how far off they've been put by it, and that could scupper their chances, potentially add that's a podium outright here as Exchange only about 29, 30 seconds ahead of E2 Jr. and Wookie Racing only a couple of seconds behind them.
Also worth noting, something else we missed, Imperial Motorsports Shake did lap Albano Competición, and we now have both the Open and the GT4 classes a full lap apart between P1 and P2. Been amazing dominance in those two classes so far. But the gap quickly growing for P1 and P2 in the GT3s. It's already up to a second and a half. I almost wonder if it makes sense now for the 003 to try and just pit in, get that splash of fuel, and go from there. They're actually going by pit entry now, but nope, they are going to carry on.
Yeah, I think for them, they just are maybe trying to stick to the strategy here, Joe, but I have to agree with you. If it's going to be close at this point, you're not fighting for the win. It's better to come in and be safe than to run out of fuel and have to coast through sunset.
And they still got 28 seconds over Ian Simon, so that's a pretty big gap. That is enough that they could probably put that gallon or two that they might need, get out of there, and hustle the car those last couple laps. Looks like that is possibly our last real battle there. Wookie Racing, are they catching up to E2JR? Let's take a look at that. Let's see, 201.2, 201.5 for Ian Simon. Wookie